Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. It is Tuesday, August 9th. I'm your host Q, coming to you live from Nashville at Bitcoin Magazine HQ, and I am joined by my co-host P. How goes it, P?
As always, it goes fantastically. We got a great show today. Why don't you take us through what we're going to be talking about and who we are going to be talking with?
So we got a jam-packed episode. We are going to kick things off in just a moment with news and notes. And then we're going to be joined by Ben Carman, and if this time he doesn't rug pull us, Tony the Rug Gorgio. They're going to be coming on to talk about Lightning security. Gorgio, fuck. I hope he wasn't listening yet. Tony Gorgio, the Rug, will be joining us later this afternoon with Ben Carman. And then, of course, we have a new episode of Fedwatch with CK and Ansel. I'm going to probably just regret saying this and shoot myself in the foot, but quite honestly, right now over on Twitter Spaces, Pete Rizzo and how do I say Matt's last name?
Doing, man? Just what are you doing?
Corallo. People deserve to know. Matt Corallo are hosting a healthy debate on Bitcoin maximalism. So if that tickles your fancy, feel free to pop on over there for a little bit, and then don't forget about us. Come back over here because we still need the viewers. We still need the likes. But yeah, you deserve to know that news and that piece of content is happening right now.
It's fair. You're the change we all deserve to see in the world. I'm sure it's a fantastic conversation. Once it ends, though, if you go check it out, jump back over here because we're going to be diving into it, talking about Lightning, talking about security with two of the most expert people in the space.
I will say this, that conversation will only last for an hour at most, so you're not going to miss a good majority of the interview. But if you do leave us right now, if you leave us hanging during news and notes, you should pop on over to Bitcoin Magazine store, buy yourself a copy of the print mag, and use promo code BMLive. Get 10% off to make it up for the fact that you're leaving us right now to go listen to Pete Rizzo instead of the sultry voices of Pete and Q.
Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. All right, let's do it. What is our first story?
Our first story, my homeland, make the headlines. Iran made its first import using cryptocurrency. No specificity on what cryptocurrency was used during this transaction, but it is reported to be a $10 million transaction. I'm going to keep my eyes out on this and keep you guys updated, but this would be huge. If it's Bitcoin, this would be a huge transaction for a country to actually be using Bitcoin. Remains to be seen. I will update you guys. Keep holding your breath.
Wait, so what exactly does this mean?
I mean, it would be the first transaction on the global stage by a country using Bitcoin or just any cryptocurrency in general. Earlier this year, we saw Russia reportedly say that they are no longer accepting US dollars for their oil exports and natural gas exports. However, they were willing to accept gold, rubles, and Bitcoin.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm reading this article.
Sorry, P.
They say the order worth $10 million was a first step towards allowing the country to trade through digital assets that bypass the dollar-denominated global financial system and to trade with other countries similarly limited by U.S. sanctions, such as Russia.
I would assume it has to be Bitcoin just because of the liquidity issue. I mean, I
guess,
guess
exactly.
Then the cryptocurrency not to be named that's listed second, you can figure out there, is probably the only one that's probably as liquid. Any other cryptocurrency that you use would move their markets too much that there'd be a lot of slippage in the trade. So I'm assuming it's Bitcoin.
It's got to be Bitcoin.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, so here's a wrench I want to throw out. And so the Reuters piece and a few other sources have all cited the Tasnim news, which is written entirely in Farsi. And while I can speak it conversationally, I cannot read or write. So I have my dad translating, and I kid you not, he literally said, it doesn't say it, or it doesn't make sense at times, but it doesn't specify a currency. And right now I'm trying to figure out, and I asked him actually, does it say anything to the tune of central bank currency or something that the government of Iran created to just be the potential that this could be some sort of CBDC? So I'm trying to rule that out before officially declaring a win for Bitcoin.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so we don't actually, the story is still developing. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I think we're going to see more and more of this type of thing. And I think that's a good thing. I don't personally support the policies and laws in Iran. However,
my people.
I think it's important that countries, entities, states, individuals are able to remove the boot of the United States economic hegemony from their necks. And, we love to say Bitcoin is for enemies. The whole idea, one of the main ideas, is that you do not have to trust the people that you are interacting with in Bitcoin. And that's important because if you give people or a government power, they will eventually use it it will corrupt them or the systems that it is part of. If you give them enough power, and then it'll be used against the people. And so the more we can support systems that do not have a central point of control, the better off we are and the better off the world is overall.
Yeah.
I'd also just like to, if I may, I brought this up long before P joined the show. I've highlighted previously how important it was to pay attention to what happens with Russia and China, because they were meeting with Iran for months leading up to the invasion of Ukraine, almost as if asking for the playbook of how have you circumvented US sanctions for so long. So while the articles are all claiming that this could be something that Russia uses, it's something to pay attention to, because China could also be someone taking full advantage of these things with an eye on, okay, fine, sanction us US, but we're still going to take Taiwan. And it remains to be seen how that plays out, but just something to keep an eye on as well and pay attention to. Shall we move on to the next story?
Yep. Russia suspends oil exports via the southern leg of Druzhba pipeline due to transit payment issues. So when I first read this, I'm like, is the US dollars or whatever currency they're using getting blocked because of SWIFT sanctions? Or is it literally like a shipment of gold that I could just see this large ship or cargo truck driving and getting blown up, and then they're like, oh, we're trying to get the gold, and I don't know, just all the issues with transit payment issues. I'm assuming that is the movement of either US dollars in a brink truck or gold or whatever it may be. I think this is really funny. I think Bitcoin does fix this in the sense that, you just send via whatever communication method a Bitcoin address, and you can wire them the payment for Bitcoin to them. Anything else you guys want to add, or should we move on?
Let's hit the next one.
Let's hit it. So we talked about the crypto exchange lending platform Hodlnaut, no relation to our favorite person, yesterday. And we talked about how they had halted withdrawals of people that were storing their cryptocurrencies with them. Slight update. The Singapore regulator that oversees these types of systems has basically used this as an opportunity to reiterate the dangers of cryptocurrency and exchanges that support them. We report that they say that cryptocurrency investment is highly hazardous, but they say meltdowns in the sector haven't created financial stability risks for Singapore. Regulators in the city-state said after another digital asset firm ran into trouble. The Monetary Authority of Singapore has rescinded its in-principle approval for the crypto lender Hodlnaut to obtain a license to provide digital payment token services under the Payment Services Act, a mass spokesperson said in an emailed statement Tuesday. So basically, Singapore is rescinding their license and has reassured everybody that this does not put strain on the overall financial system. That's it. Let's keep going.
All right. Kathy Wood says the regulatory uncertainty spurred their pairing of ARK's Coinbase stake. Since ARK unloaded their shares of Coinbase, the stock has since jetted up 80%. To that, I just say, even the best of them get them wrong sometimes. So you win some, you lose some, Kathy. On to the next trade.
I want to add one thing real quick. It seems like Kathy Wood, she had a very good year in 2020 for those that are unfamiliar with ARK Invest, but I think it went up parabolic basically. And I mean, a lot of things were in 2020 because there was a rush to get rid of your dollars into other assets. Bitcoin did quite well in that time, better than actually, I don't know by a comparison of it, but did very well, obviously. The one thing that I've wondered is Kathy Wood kind of feels like an outsider, even though she's on the inside, I wonder, she must not have heard of the BlackRock dealing with Coinbase and stuff. And you wonder how much, we see insider trading all the time with Nancy Pelosi and how her and her husband.
I love that. I love that your explanation is rooted on this idea that, well, because she did insider trade on this, she must not be respected or accepted in the Wall Street community.
Well, it seems that she does not have an in. Like everyone does not like her because she won in 2020, or I don't know. It's obviously a battle. They're trying to compete for capital, and it's very interesting that. Go ahead.
No, please finish your point.
It just seems interesting that it's like, not that she didn't hear any rumors of things going on with BlackRock and Coinbase, and then all of a sudden unloaded, and they're like, oh, well, now we're getting at the cheap, basically. Or,
Seems like a huge leap, multiple leaps.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, though, ultimately is rooted around ARK's portfolio being a concentrated group of hyper growth stocks. Like, it's not the NASDAQ composite. It also has, gene editing stocks, and it had like anything that was crypto adjacent, not just Bitcoin only. She had a lot of other tech startups and companies, a lot of SPACs in there. It was like a millennial dreams portfolio, to be quite honest with you. Like, it was just the portfolio of every stock that crushed in 2020.
The SPACs are getting hammered too, of course.
But all of those stocks were relying on low interest rates to make their future earnings look stronger than they are. So in an environment that sees interest rates go higher, what essentially happens is the future earnings are devalued now, because interest payments make money more valuable today than it does in the future. So that's why all these growth stocks are getting hammered on these earnings reports. And that's why you see ARK Invest, an ETF that is super concentrated in growth stocks, getting blown up right now because you're seeing rising interest rates. So she had a bad trade. I genuinely just think that's what it is. Like, she mistimed it. I think she probably should have exited a little earlier. I should have exited my Coinbase position a little earlier than I did, probably. But
how much did they actually lose on this?
I believe it was to the tune of 75-60%. I got paywalled out of the Bloomberg article.
Wait,
Pete Rizzo, please upgrade my Bloomberg terminal.
But what percentage of their overall portfolio is this? Like, is this?
Oh, I mean, I don't think they have a position size higher than 7.5%.
I mean, that would be significant. I'm just wondering if this is like a non-story. Like, what percentage of their actual overall?
He was one of the largest shareholders of Coinbase.
Oh, fuck. All right. Never mind.
Yeah. So like when they were liquidated, she was one of the largest.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right,
so
enough.
it was a significant thing. So
we'll
just move on to the next story. Speaking of Bloomberg, this is the reason why I got timed out and I lost all of my free articles for the day. Bloomberg analyst Mike McClone, a senior commodities strategist at Bloomberg, has said that he believes that Bitcoin will likely transition to a risk-off asset at the end of 2022, saying that as global economies move into recession in the second half of 2022, Bitcoin will likely rally alongside gold and treasury bonds. This is interesting because this would imply that we'd see a decoupling. That correlation that you guys can't get me to stop talking about, this is essentially implying that should Bitcoin be treated as a risk-off asset, you would see that correlation diminish rapidly. This would be huge. I know this has been a thing a lot of people are calling for. Let's see how this plays out. It would be a huge step in the right direction in the eyes of institutional investors if they saw Bitcoin for what it was, as a risk-off asset. So I don't know if either of you guys feel as passionately that this could be actually a huge step in the right direction for Bitcoin on the global stage or not.
I can add a little bit. I think it'd be cool if it rallies, but anyone says that they know if and when it will rally or fall is lying. Everyone kind of got burned in the tail end of 2021 saying their price predictions. I don't think no one was bearish enough. I know Odell was out there yelling for 500K Bitcoin by the end of the year and stuff, and I was wrong. I thought we were gonna be like 150K. So you never know how markets move, and it seems that they always move in the direction of most pain. So we'll see.
Also worth just pointing out, so if you're like me and you still play in the shitcoin casino that is the New York Stock Exchange, not Coinbase, that is another shitcoin casino, but the original shitcoin casino, which is the New York Stock Exchange, if we do see Bitcoin treated as a risk-off asset, what that means is while the stock markets get pumped because the Fed inevitably did what we all think they will do, which is reverse their position and go back and into quantitative easing, you will eventually see Bitcoin almost underperform against some of those other things for a period of time. So careful what you wish for, perhaps, maybe. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. I do want to address P what you brought up and asked earlier, which was ARC top 10 holdings. And I do see the comments. Thank you, D3 48 as well as Frosty Flake. So on ARC Invest website, their top 10 holdings with the most weight being 8.62% with Tesla, then Zoom at 8.5%. Then it starts falling off very quickly. Roku. On their website, they still have Block and Coinbase listed, but I do see that you guys said that they unloaded some of those shares. So interesting to see. They also have Exact Science, CRISPR, Teladoc, Beam Therapeutics. So they used to have Palantir as well. Thank you for that, guys. High growth stock portfolio, nothing higher than 8.6%, and that being Tesla. Shall we go to the next story, P?
Yep.
Let's do it. We did a Twitter space recently about this like meme, this bear market meme in the Bitcoin community called Stack Chain, which is just a way to basically drive up adoption and to celebrate as each of us that are into Bitcoin continue to stack even in this bear market. So there is a pseudo milestone. I say pseudo because it's all just kind of a joke, but it's a fun one. Stackchain just hit a milestone block 1,000, which means that their $500,000 USD worth of Bitcoin has been collectively stacked by the Stackchain community. If you don't know what it is, go onto Twitter, search for Stackchain, and get in on it. It's fun.
Memes rule the world.
That's right. It's fucking right.
Moving on to the
Chris,
next story.
Yeah. Take us away.
So regarding Tornado Cash, obviously they are the mixer or the equivalent mixer like Whirlpool for one of the other cryptocurrencies that shall not be named, but obviously they were sanctioned by the Treasury Department. A lot of news has come out in the 24 hours since this has happened. Obviously, there was a court case in Berenstein versus the U.S. Department of Justice where Berenstein won the case. The Ninth Circuit of Appeals ruled that software source code with speech protected by the First Amendment and government regulations preventing its publication were unconstitutional. So obviously, it seems to be that they're trying to go after them for KYC or AML laws, but that's kind of preventing the source code. So it remains to be seen how this shakes out. There was a story yesterday from the CEO of CirclePay, and basically it seized up a large portion of their accounts that had these tainted ETH addresses in it. So it not only restricted the movement of the ETH that they had, but the USDC. Further, this gets more and more interesting. Someone that was in the Tornado Cash whirlpool was sending out 0.1 to a bunch of other addresses. Basically, this is called the dusting attack, when you send a small amount of whatever you have to someone else. And basically, it was dinging all these people's addresses, saying that they can no longer use this address because it received basically tainted like cryptocurrency from them. One of the addresses was Brian Armstrong himself, the CEO of Coinbase. So I find this very, very interesting. Now, we don't want to focus on, obviously, the cryptocurrency that we just named, but because we've listed all the host of issues that we see with it, with centralization, the issues, the faulty software that's built on and all that. But this is an attack on privacy, which will ultimately come to the Bitcoin community. And while, I don't agree with what they do, I'm kind of more of the libertarian mindset that no, like we don't need more regulations for this. It's the free market sorts it out. With that being said, this is not investment advice. Whatever you put your money into, like there are risks to anything you invest in. But yeah, PQ, anything else you guys want to add to this privacy attack that we're seeing right now, which I think is only a matter of time before they come after Bitcoin and the Bitcoin CoinJoin implementations?
Yeah, I mean, you said it best, and I'll even caveat it and just say, if there are things, and I'll keep it broad, but if there are things that you don't want yourself to be succumbed to, that you don't want people that you align with to have to deal with, those same things, for example, if you want privacy over your own payments and your money, those things should still be synonymous with other types of cryptocurrencies, because unfortunately, they'll do it to them, they'll do it to you too. So to Chris's point, like, this is an attack not on Ethereum. This is an attack on privacy. And if they are successful in wiping down code from the internet, which we have established is protected by the First Amendment. I mean, we've seen this government overturn things just on its whim. So we'll see. We'll see how this pans out. But this is not a win in any way for Bitcoin, other than maybe lighting a fire and getting people to really pay attention and fight for what we all need, which is less surveillance and less authority from this tyrannical government.
You're muted,
Apologies. I think this is particularly interesting because this was hosted on GitHub, and the software engineers who had contributed to this code base, their GitHub got suspended. And we basically, GitHub is a core aspect of the software engineering community. It is a core aspect of the open source development community. Now, Git is a protocol. GitHub is a platform, a website that was created to more effectively facilitate the open source and closed source contribution to software. But the vast majority of open source software that exists today is hosted on GitHub, the website. And so there's other systems out there. There's GitLab. You can run it in a local, or sort of in a local way. But this is, to my knowledge, one of the first times that we've seen this kind of overreach with regard to GitHub specifically. And so I think this is it's a terrible thing. It is also a positive thing in that it is reminding everyone how important it is to remain sovereign, both in your financial systems and also in your software system. So, GitHub Core is currently hosted on GitHub. People have been, maintaining archives, up-to-date backups of everything that is on the, Bitcoin Core repo. But it becomes so important that we are aware of and work to prevent these types of systems, or really any type of system, from becoming a potential central point of failure. So I hope that this is a wake-up call, both for people that are in the ETH community who are like, Ethereum is decentralized, which is horseshit, and also for Bitcoiners, and forces all of us to kind of identify those potential points of failure in the future and work to remediate them. But I think a lot of people that are in the ETH community are getting a very, very rude awakening right now.
Yeah, and I think Odell brought up a great point too. GitHub was meant to be used in running your own server. So obviously dedicating either a hard drive or your own server space in order to run GitHub on yourself. But it is by far more convenient to use GitHub's server, like their website, and pull information to and from there. When you are doing that, you're opening yourself up that they can suspend your account and any of the work that you've done because you're linked to their account instead of running a self-hosted server. With that being said, I think, like I said, I am not for more government regulation. We should be trying to get less of it. It already looks like we're going to be getting 87,000 more IRS agents. What, the vote goes on Friday too, like you said, for the that's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Someone made up a great point. I think there's 750 approximately billionaires in the United States, or at least based in the U.S. If they're adding 8,000 or 87,000 IRS agents, they're not going after all of those billionaires by no means. So this is going to be, your taxes are going up. You're paying to get taxed more, only for them to audit you more to try and penny pinch you for more of your money. So this is not a good thing. And I think that there's, what's that infamous saying, like during the Holocaust, like at first they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I'm not Jewish. Then they came for the gays. I said nothing because I'm not gay. And then like, I'm saying this in regards to them going after the privacy community, at least for ETH. It's not a good thing. I do not want them going after them. I do not think this is a good thing. By no means is it a good investment. Do I think you should put your money in it? Not financial advice. And things might even get worse for them. And I might say this in this way: imagine they went after AWS and they said you have to stop servicing, the nodes or the validators for ETH, and just Amazon's not going to say, "Oh, we're protecting them." They have like millions of clients globally. They would just turn it off in a heartbeat. So, to Pete's
Oh, you
point,
mean like having a centralized point of failure is a bad thing for decentralized finance?
I would say so.
Huh.
Q, if you want to expand on that, go ahead.
I'm just
Well-
no, go ahead, P.
Well, I was going to say, like, Infura hosts a ton of the Ethereum nodes, and I believe Infura is actually hosted on AWS, but these systems are already incredibly centralized, and it does create massive points of failure. So it's that is to say with Ethereum, it's bad news bears all around.
We got one more story.
Let's hit it, and then let's start the show. What's the last story?
All right. My personal least favorite human being on earth, the Orange Man, cried wolf last night and said that he got raided by the FBI. And now reports are coming out that there's a warrant, but no one's seen this warrant. Look, I hate the man. You all know how much I hate the man. If there is no warrant, this is absurd. This is stupid. And this is genuinely wrong and foul doing on the U.S. government's fault. If there's an actual warrant and there's actually stuff that he maybe took from the White House that they want to find or whatever the fuck it is, honestly, I'm so sick that I have to even like mention his name. But you guys care, so we care. That's it.
All right, my friends, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to have Tony Gorgio and Ben Carman to talk about privacy and Lightning privacy, and everything in between. Roll the tape.
You are listening to Bitcoin Magazine. Listening to Bitcoin Magazine. Number one Bitcoin Magazine. You are listening to Bitcoin Magazine. Listening to Bitcoin Magazine. Number one Bitcoin Magazine. Samba.
What is up, guys? Thank you for sticking through that commercial break. I do want to remind everyone that tickets for Bitcoin Amsterdam are on sale right now. Use promo code BMLive. Get 10% off of those tickets. Come join the biggest party, the biggest Bitcoin party in all of Europe, happening in October 12th to 14th. P, can you please introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. We have two titans of the Bitcoin and Lightning privacy space. We've got Ben Carman, who is, man, you've done so much shit. You were a speaker at Bitcoin 22, the least of your accomplishments. You have been focused on coin joins and systems that work to improve Bitcoin privacy. You've worked on DLCs, you were at SuredBits, and now you're at the Bitcoin company. Welcome to the show. We also have Tony Gorgio, who was also a speaker at Bitcoin 2022. You are also a Bitcoin and Lightning privacy advocate. You are a developer and a researcher on both of those systems. You've worked at a ton of different startups over the last 5 years. You focused on decentralized identities, exchange integrations, as I said, privacy research, and you are currently working on a new, really novel Lightning wallet called PLN. We're excited to have both of you. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me all right this time?
You sound clear as a bell.
Great. Yeah, sorry about all the mishaps last time.
No, it's all right. I'm just excited we're able to figure it out.
You got the better Ben, so it's all right.
Oh, God. I think we should dive just straight into the most important question. Who is the best Ben on the Council of Bens? And before you answer that, can you iterate on who is on the Council of Bens?
The Council of Bens, we're like, the largest group of single named men in Bitcoin. I think our council, I can look, it's like over 20 people now. Yeah, we have
Wait,
22.
actually?
Yeah, we have 22 people on the council. So we're a small group, and but all Bens are fungible though. So there's no leader, there is no best Ben or worst Ben. We're all the same. We're all just Ben.
Said like the best Ben.
Yeah, what is it, the best king is the one who's like, I don't want to be a king.
Hey man, Marcus Aurelius didn't want to be king.
I rest my case.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the world today. We were just talking about, actually, before I do that, would you guys add anything to the introduction that I gave both of you? What did I miss? What do we need to make sure that people know before we proceed?
I think you need to learn how to spell Tony Gorgio's name. You misspelled it in the tweet as well as in the YouTube description.
You misspelled it in like 2 different ways too.
Chris,
To you.
Chris,
You misspell it like Marty Ben mispronounces it.
Chris,
So
Producer Chris.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Apologizing in the chat. No worries.
I also, in the calendar invite, misspelled your name, Ben, which I thought was really funny because, of course, I know how to spell your name. It's just Carman.
No, it's Ben the Fraud Man now, actually. So
yeah, it's committing too much fraud.
Too much fraud in the game of chess.
Oh shit!
Oh,
it wasn't even fraud. I just showed them a screenshot of my game, and they said I photoshopped it.
I mean, you did. But you told me on the side that you did Photoshop that image.
Well, that was a secret, so.
There are no secrets here. Bitcoin is for enemies. Hashtag not your keys, not your coin. As I said, there's a lot going on in the world. There's so much we could talk about. I want to focus the majority of our conversation, as the title would suggest, on privacy in the Bitcoin space and privacy in the Lightning space specifically. Before we dive into we get on that rabbit hole too significantly, I want to get your thoughts, if you have any, on what is going on with this Tornado Cash situation. We were just talking about it in news and notes. What do you guys think?
Ben, you're probably more plugged in than I am on this.
I thought it was pretty cool. Like when I saw it, I was like, that's badass. Like if you can get sanctioned by the US Treasury, like you're probably doing something right. At least on a privacy side. If you're a murderer, like fuck you. But if you're just giving people privacy and you get sanctioned, that's pretty cool. So I think like Tornado Cash is a pretty good privacy tool. It basically it's kind of like a centralized mixer, but it operates on as a ETH smart contract. So there's like ETH is centralized, but if you assume it's not, then it's a decentralized smart mixer. So I guess it was like kind of cool, and then like seeing like GitHub and everything like shut down accounts. So it was like that was like kind of scary, like kind of showing the vulnerabilities of the space there, where we're all kind of trusting these like few that's just Microsoft, and so but yeah, I don't know. It's like kind of scary to see that the US is kind of trying to clamp down now on privacy. So maybe that's first, because that's an easy one for them to just say like we sanction this, but next they could do like they could say like all coin joins are sanctioned now or anything like that. So it's something to be wary of, and hopefully we can work on different tech to improve that.
I think on that note too, like there's the aspect of the centralization aspect of it too. Like Ben is right. Like they're probably doing something right on the privacy side if they're actually getting sanctioned, but they're probably really doing something wrong on the centralization front too, which is all the stable coins getting locked up that were associated with it, the smart contract addresses being put on a list, all the, and then the fact that like Ethereum isn't really decentralized anyways, like all of these things, and there's like no privacy on Ethereum. Like everyone like boasts their single like pub key, their single address, and it's like, hey, look how many tokens I have, and look at all these airdrops and everything else. Like Ethereum's a terrible privacy tool in general. So I think all these things combined, like, yeah, there's some privacy you can get with Tornado Cash, and I haven't looked into the details of it because it's on Ethereum and I don't look at that crap. But just from the centralization point, I mean, you could, in theory, like, I don't know if you wouldn't be able to like put certain, like the code aspect is interesting. Like the code, the address, the smart contracts are like what is sanctioned, right? So like, but that's like hosted code somewhere. Like it's the equivalent of like someone has like a Tor address, like the Silk Road, and that gets like put on a sanction list or like gets shut down or they as a target. Like, hey, everyone, I know it's on Tor, it's a different story, but like imagine if it was just like www like tornadocash.com, like that,
or like one of those
wouldn't last
websites
very
that gave us movies, like 123movies.com.
right. And they can hide as long as they can, like, and Pirate Bay is like still up and running, which is kind of, if you ever listen to Darknet Diaries, like there's a really good like the founder joined for one of the episodes and talked about the entire like process of Pirate Bay and how they went about that. But yeah, it's one of those things, like you can imagine a scenario where like a certain CoinJoin coordinator is actually like somewhat sanctioned in a way, like their Tor address is like targeted, like, hey, everyone, if anyone is associated with this, then you're somewhat of a bad guy. I mean, actually enforcing is a whole different story, but they can at least make the case of like, hey, this Tor address is a bad address, like if you're interacting with this and we find it out, then then you're also like disobeying sanctions. So yeah, it's all these centralization aspects. You're opening yourselves up for targeting in this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty interesting and concerning, as you guys have pointed out. I wonder, like, what was the impetus for this specific sanction? What was the thing that kicked off this specific process?
If I were to guess, there's probably North Koreans using it, and they found that out, and they're. I don't know if I didn't read the reports. I wasn't not on Twitter, so I don't see what people are chatting about. But like, that's my guess. It's like, I don't think it's they're just trying to like tackle the there's people in Ethereum trying to hide for one reason or another. I think it's actually probably a serious thing. I think it's actually like nation states using it probably. And because North Koreans, they are actually actively trying to they still funds all the time in the crypto space, and they are always trying to look at ways to like launder and ways to like push that funds actually sell the stuff that they have. So I would actually think there's probably some serious merit behind it, to be honest. It's just the precedent about putting code like a smart contract online as a sanctioned person or a sanctioned individual or a sanctioned thing. I think that precedent has never been set before.
Yeah, I guess what immediately comes to mind is like, what is stopping them from doing this with Bitcoin based coin joining solutions, and what is the what's the threshold above which that will become a potential attack vector? I don't think there's an answer, but
it's like a little weird because like with like this, there's like like this Tornado Cash is like an ETH address that like so like when you make a payment or withdrawal from it to like do the like their version of the coin join, it's like very obvious you're like sending to this address and then sending out in a different one. So like you can definitely sell like this person used Tornado Cash, which is in Bitcoin, there's no just like you sent to this address kind of thing. It's like, I did this coin join. You see a transaction with like 50 inputs and outputs. So it's obviously doing a coin join, but there's no like, they couldn't just ban like no transactions with over 50 outputs or something. So then we just do coin joins with 49 outputs. And so it's not really something like that's like as easily sanctionable in Bitcoin, which is nice. But they could still just be like coin joins illegal or something. And luckily, sadly, the government, they just make up rules and it's impossible to enforce. But then, you still go to jail and you have to go wait 5 years until your day in court to actually get free. So, we can argue all we want. We still have to like, still like get around those rules and stuff.
And I think the tools aspect of it as well, like they could censor or like say, okay, this coordinator is quote unquote good or bad, but the idea that they can actually like the actual open source tools themselves, like this Tornado Cash thing, and again, I haven't looked at it deeply, but like it probably doesn't work if it wasn't just like published code on the Ethereum smart contract, right? But like as we start using like more open source tools, like that's a little bit of a different story. Like in general, they don't need to be hosted somewhere. It's not like code on the internet. Ideally, it's just code that's locally on your computer. And then, I know like Join Market's a little, I think it's a little bit more distributed or decentralized where there's not like a central coordinator, and there's other things you can do in the decentralized coordinator space, like actual real decentralization, not Ethereum. So I think like with better tools and more like open source client side tools, I think I don't think you can just sanction unhosted code. I know the word unhosted is kind of a unhosted wallet is kind of a debate of that topic, but it literally is just like code on your computer. Like how do you? It's like the sanctions on cryptography, like how actually saying like you can't export these like cryptography. Specific cryptography implementations, but like people would put it on a shirt and it would just be code and they would hop on an airplane and go across seas. Like how do you actually enforce that? How do you actually stop that if it's literally just code? There's a difference between it being hosted and it being on your machine, but if it's literally just like code on your machine, like there's nothing you can really do to stop that.
What happens in a scenario where it's found that, to your point, Tony, like they can't stop code? There's nothing, like no government entity can actually stop the running of code from all walks of life. So over time, as more of these examples start to pop up, we were just discussing earlier how Iran apparently made $10 million in a digital payment of some sort of cryptocurrency. We're still trying to figure out which cryptocurrency that was, due in large part because they've been under sanctions for 50 plus years. Like what happens when more and more people realize like, hey, this just works and there's nothing they can do about it?
I mean, that's been the reality for years, and the government still hasn't realized it. So, I mean, maybe when Nancy Pelosi dies, when we get some new people in office, maybe that'll happen. But still, like, I think this is like a lot of things that just like humans in general haven't realized that, like when you tell people about Bitcoin and they'll be like, oh, the government will stop that. I'm like, no, they literally can't. Like, this is impossible. So, like, just most of humans haven't realized like the power that like computers give us, because the average the human just kind of sees it as like, oh, I have an iPhone and it lets me browse Twitter, but people don't realize like kind of the level of power this can give you, and it emboldens humans and gives them freedom.
So I want to shift us slightly. We've been using the terms, coin join, both within the context of Tornado Cash and also Lightning. Let's take a step back. Can you guys define for the audience what a coin join is and why it's important? And then let's shift over to what a Lightning coin join is and how that works.
And you're the man here. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, basically like a coin join, it's pretty simple. Like, so imagine like me and Tony both want to send a transaction. Instead of me doing a transaction and Tony doing a transaction, we do one transaction together. That's basically the concept. And then you just extrapolate that out into like, instead of like 2 people, you could have like 100 people. And the reasoning is basically like this transaction, if we do them individually, now they look like 2 separate transactions, and like, my address is tied to me, his address is tied to him. So they can see like, oh, this was Ben's transaction, he's sending to address A. You can see Tony's transaction, he's sending to address B. And it's not the best. So the idea of a coin join is basically just do that in the same transaction, and now they see that me and Tony are in the same transaction, but they don't know who owns the addresses going out. So that's kind of the idea. And then you can extract this out to like 100 people, so then it gets extremely hard because it's hard to calculate who's doing it. Like in that 2-person case, it's like 50-50 of which address is whose. There's 100, now it's like 1 in 100. It gets really hard. And this kind of just lets you like give you more and more privacy, and then you can kind of like compound these. So like if you do like multiple coin joins in a row, and then you're like getting exponential increases in your privacy and stuff like that. So that's kind of the idea. And like today it exists mostly in Wasabi and Whirlpool, and then Join Market as well. Those are kind of the traditional ways people use it in Bitcoin. And I don't know, I guess that's all I have to add there.
Tony, would you add anything to that?
No, I think that was pretty good. And then yeah, on the aspect of like coin joining and Lightning and what you can kind of do there, it's a little bit more advanced, and we haven't seen like the exact potential that we can get out of it. But like Carman's been working on Vortex for a little while now, as like one way to do coin joins. It's basically like collaborative open channel. So it's like you open a Lightning channel, but you also open everyone else piles in too, and they all open Lightning channels to whoever their node is that they're opening, but they all kind of collaborate together on that. So it kind of just looks like one big like, you know, coin join transaction, but it's actually like a whole bunch of channel opens happening at the same time. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that more on that, Ben, but that I think that's the gist.
Yeah, that's really good. The only thing I would add is like today, it's okay because like right now, when you open a Lightning channel, it's very obvious on chain that this is like not a normal address. It's like pay to witness script hash, so it looks like something that's not like something I would normally receive to. But with Taproot, everything will look the same. A normal address versus a Lightning channel look the same on chain. So then you could have these coin joins where some people are sending to like, you know, making a payment. Some of them are coin joining to themselves to give themselves privacy, and some people are opening a Lightning channel. So you could all have this in a single transaction that looks like very uniform, but it's, all these different use cases are being covered. So it lets you get like a lot more privacy in that regard.
And I believe, Ben, you said that LND is coming out with that. I think in the next major release, like being able to open Taproot, these Taproot channels.
That's what I was told. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be public, but I guess it is now.
Here, let me do like a super late, censorship beep just to. There we go. It was beeped out. Don't even trip, dog. And the reason
like,
that this is.
If I can go back on that comment too, just to elaborate on like why it's important to be doing this, like you brought up like P2WSH transactions, and they kind of look really unique to like a Lightning channel or like a multi-sig in general. And then when you actually spend out of that transaction, you reveal the script. So you reveal some of the uniqueness of it. So like if it's a 2-2 multi-sig, which is, you know, Lightning transactions, Lightning opens, they actually are, you can actually kind of estimate of whether or not that was like a Lightning channel or not. And I did some work on probing unannounced channels by just monitoring the on-chain transactions that are P2WSH transactions. So there's like 900,000 P2WSH transactions, and I can actually go through and like probe and try to find all these hidden channels on Lightning. And I think I've gotten up to 100 Bitcoin worth of transactions, or sorry, 100 Bitcoin worth of channel opens. So like when we look at the Lightning Explorer, we can see like, oh, it has this much capacity and this many nodes and stuff like that. But that's just what we publicly see. There's this whole like, hidden side of it. You can think of it like an iceberg. There's this whole hidden side of Lightning that you can't actually see very easily. So like some of the work I'm doing right now, you can go to hiddenlightningnetwork.com to go to the GitHub repo where I'm actually doing this, and some of the results are there. And it's like 100 Bitcoin, I think, so far, like 10,000 channels that I've found that are like actual, they call them private channels, but they're not that private. So you can actually like just using on-chain data to like, the Lightning is almost privacy wise. There's a lot of privacy benefits to Lightning, but then there's all these things that inherits from Bitcoin and Bitcoin's lack of privacy. And that includes for now, like, P2WSH channel open. So like, yeah, it'll get better when we can actually get Taproot opens. And then there's some improvements also coming down the pipeline, and some that I've already implemented that kind of help. But yeah, so, Lightning kind of inherits some of Bitcoin's lack of privacy.
And I just want to take a step back for the audience. When we're talking about the Lightning Network is a layer 2 technology on top of Bitcoin's layer 1 technology, right? So you've got this incredibly robust layer 1, which is Bitcoin on-chain transactions. And then the Lightning Network sits on top of that, so to speak. And it is a protocol that allows us to, send Bitcoin payments very, very rapidly and currently essentially for no fees. And so when we talk about systems that, and somebody's like, oh, you can't buy a coffee with Bitcoin, that's bullshit for other reasons, but you can do it very rapidly and you can settle it very rapidly using the Lightning Network. And, at a topological level, you basically have nodes in the Lightning Network. And, if I have a Lightning node and, Tony has one and Ben has one and Q has one, none of us have to be directly connected to each other in order to be able to send Bitcoin through the Lightning Network to each other. So if I have a channel to Q has a channel to Tony, and Tony has a channel to Ben, I can send payments to Ben simply by basically a payment gets sent to Q then sends that payment to Tony then sends that payment to Ben, and there we go. And so there are public channels which can be used to route payments throughout the network, and then there's private channels. And what Tony is talking about is figuring out where private channels are based on the transaction type, the signature type, which is the more correct term there, Tony?
Yeah, transaction type.
The transaction type that is specific to the opening or closing of Lightning channels, because you have to make an on-chain transaction when you open that initial Lightning channel, and then that channel gets reused over and over and over again to sort of route these payments back and forth through the Lightning Network.
The cool thing is, like, if you actually know of a private channel, of an unannounced channel that exists, you can route through that too. It's just like there's a lot of private channels, and the main one that I was probing to figure out, who actually has unannounced channels. Async, which Async has Phoenix, they're like LSP, they're Lightning service provider. So they have this wallet that like kind of makes it easy for people to like onboard to Lightning. And a lot of mobile phones won't, in the typical Lightning node, you would want that to be like always online. That way you could not only just route payments, but also you need to occasionally come online to make sure that, the base layer of Bitcoin's okay, right? Because it operates on the second level. But you need to like come online every now and then to make sure that your channel partner isn't trying to cheat you. There's some on-chain transaction checking that it has to do. We don't have to dive too much into those details, but you should come online every now and then. But mobile phones, aren't online all the time. So LSPs typically come in to help that, and they will open unannounced channels. So mobile phones will be unannounced channels because they're not online all the time. So if you were to broadcast, oh, this is a public channel, people may try to route through it, and it'd just be a bad experience for routing in general, because like that node's going to be down. So like as you're sending on Lightning, and as P described it, like hops from one person to another person. If I was offline at that scenario and P sends it to Q, and Q tries to send it to me to get it to Ben, if I'm offline, then that payment fails. And luckily the Lightning Network is like distributed enough where you can try many different payments. There's like, 20K nodes or something like that right now. So there's a lot of paths that exist, but with each failed path, it's like time that you have to spend trying another path. If a payment gets stuck, that's a shitty experience as well. But I forget what I bring that up. Oh, just being offline in general. There's some reasons there.
I just changed the title to the Bitcoin Lightning Network Cures Cancer, which I think is not an it's a true statement, is what I'm trying to say.
Trust the science.
If you got to pay your doctor really fast and to get your cancer,
Right. It also saves Christmas. So
Bitcoin fixes everything.
That's right. Specifically the Lightning Network. Interesting. Okay. So we're why does it become useful, Tony, to probe all these channels? Like, what is that important from the perspective of improving Lightning Network privacy overall? Does it provide economic advantage to people that have that information? What's the impetus for you trying to figure out where these unannounced, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're saying unannounced channel is the same as a private channel, it's just a channel that is not broadcast through the gossip protocols, all right?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that term is used more than private, because when you say something's private and it's not, then it people think they're getting some privacy that they're not actually getting. But going back to what you kind of asked here, there's a few reasons to actually do this. For one, it provides me no benefits doing this. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. I'm not gaining anything from this except maybe a little bit of clout. I'm really just doing it for two reasons. One, to highlight the fact that this is a concern, that these private channels aren't private. And I came out with an article earlier, or I guess about a year ago, and someone had asked in the comments, I have no idea where to go to about like learning about privacy on Lightning. I came out with this article. It's abytesjourney.com/lightning-privacy. And I try to like educate as much as I can there. But the gist of it is like, I came out with that post and people are still like, opening private channels and saying that they're private, or like thinking that they're safe, and like, oh wait, there's private in the name. I can just like use any UTXO that I want. And the reality is, that information could be, leaked out. And so I'm actually going through the effort of leaking it out, to raise awareness, and all of it's open source. And I'm publishing all the data, because like Chain Analytics could be doing this right now. And in fact, they've already said that they're doing some sort of Lightning solution. I don't know if anyone's like figured out what Lightning Chain Analytics solution that they've come up with or how they're doing it. I have suspicions, but it's just to raise awareness, really. And then the other thing is like, I could also gather this analytics too and publish them, and so we can actually get a better understanding of how many Lightning channels do actually exist. There's some analytics that can be gathered here, just to kind of like, everyone just hand waves, oh, we've had this many Bitcoin locked up on Lightning, and then we say, oh, but we can't see private channels. And it's like, well, that's true, but this could kind of help us figure out a little bit more of that, what's under the tip of the iceberg.
Got it.
I think something to highlight too is this is like something that's like now like kind of fixed, where because the way he's doing is finding like all these outputs in Bitcoin that look like a potential Lightning channel, and then trying to see if they are. And because the way you like route a payment is like through this channel ID, and that's just derived from like looking at that like transaction. But now they changed it so for these unannounced channels that channel ID is just a random number. It doesn't need to be tied to the transaction. So now it'd take them like a billion years to be able to guess the correct channel ID to try to route the payment. So it's not really doable anymore if like everyone upgrades these channels to these new types of unannounced channels.
Got it.
Yeah, it would. Everyone would have to close all of their unannounced channels right now to get a benefit of it. But I think LND, I think they just merged it. LDK had just merged it. I think a few other people are about to. So soon, everyone will support that. And then it's, someone had asked me the other day, okay, now if we can get this, like they're calling it short channel ID alias. It's also named zero conf channels. It's just the same. There's like two features, that are binded together. Someone asked me like, oh, if we get that, then would you say like private channels are now private again? Like, and I haven't thought too deeply at that. It's at least more private, and I think no one can guess what UTXO you're opening with. So it's like, yeah, it's a little bit more private. You still leak it out. You still leak out that there's some channels there whenever you open it, but they won't be able to see what your UTXO is. So like, I'm only your channel partner sees that, of course, and they have to see that. So like in theory, they could tell the whole world about this like private channel between you and the other person. So you're kind of trusting your channel partner not to be a bad actor.
And I know I keep dragging it, since I know I keep dragging it. Go ahead.
Sorry. This is where like coin joins come really powerful, because if you just like open that channel to that peer, like they could just like tweet it out like, oh, Ben Carman just opened a private channel to me with this transaction, and now I'm screwed. But I could, if I used CoinJoin in that either that channel open or previously before I opened that channel, now he won't know my actual like previous addresses that I owned and like get my wallet cluster from that. So it could like help your privacy as well, where instead of like just being like, here's like you have like a 10 Bitcoin UTXO and open a channel with it. Now everyone, you can like tweet it out and be like, Ben Carman knows 10 Bitcoin. Versus like CoinJoin, he can't see like what my previous history is, and you have better privacy there. Yeah,
and I just wanted to take a step back and like reiterate for the people that are listening. I'm assuming everybody already knows this, but one of the main reasons these technologies are so important, you'll hear these inane, counter statements thrown out like, well, if you aren't doing anything bad, then you don't have anything to hide. But the reality is when it is possible for people to collect this type of information on how money is being used, people will collect it. And then even if those people are, good actors currently, that information is very, very likely to eventually, at some point in the future, get hacked or leaked or collected by, as I said, other parties that shouldn't have access to it. And then when people become, for whatever reason, undesirables or a specific type of financial transaction, which is like a human right and everybody should be able to transact freely, when those become considered bad things for political reasons, if that data is available, those people will be sanctioned. And it is incredibly naive to think that this doesn't affect us in the United States because we live in, the best country in the world, which is something that, is up for grabs. We're certainly currently the one of the, if not the world superpower. We have the world reserve currency, but we may not exist in that world for much longer.
Yep, and on that note, like laws change. Things that you have done that is legal today could be illegal tomorrow. Cancel culture is a thing. I mean, even just like looking back at like all the shit we would laugh at in the 2000s, and now comedians are like getting in trouble for a tweet they made in 2005. Like this, it's all like bullshit. Cancel culture. It's all bullshit. Like just like you think you don't need some of this privacy until you actually do. And then at that point, it's too late.
You're muted, P. So I'll take that opportunity to just also, paint that picture. Everything P described happened in Canada, where everyone a year ago to this date felt the way a lot of us in America feel. So that's my contribution. Back to you, P.
No, I was just going to say, like, where should we go in this conversation from here? There's a number of other things that I want to dive into. I want to talk about PLN and the work that you're doing there, Tony. As I said, I'd love to talk a little bit about your privacy research grant. Should we start with PLN and then transition over to the privacy research grant, or go the other way around?
Yeah. We can do that. One of the things, it was a hackathon in Austin about a month or two ago that me and Paul Miller started working on a Lightning wallet we called PLN. We're going to change the name. We'll save the grand name change for like the release day. But we'll be changing the name, but it's essentially like a Lightning wallet that focuses on the privacy aspect. So like Lightning does have a lot of good privacy features like kind of built into it, but it all depends on how people use it. So if no one's actually utilizing all these privacy features, or there's these foot guns that kind of get in the way that like, and I wrote about it in that article I mentioned earlier, but like it's like a 30-minute read. And then you read it and you're like, holy shit, like how do I actually do all the things that this article suggests? And like I don't even do that shit. Like it's just too hard to practically and reasonably implement utilize Lightning in the most private way without having like holes in it. So this wallet's specifically designed to just implement all the privacy features. Like you don't have to think about it. Our funny tagline that will change is just don't worry about it. But it's all going to be open source, all going to be out there. But we're kind of utilizing the most privacy features, and then we're even going to develop like what we're calling like the threat modeling API, basically like a warning of like, okay, if you try to do something and it's not, you're going to leak some privacy, then it like warns you, okay, hey, here are the trade-offs of doing this specific thing. Like you can go ahead, but here's where, like, do you trust this other person? Like, here's where your privacy could be leaked in the general. And one of the things the wallet does not do for privacy reasons right now is receive, because receiving on Lightning is not private at all. You leak out the node that you're using, and then from there you leak out the UTXOs that are involved in it, and et cetera, et cetera. Until we actually get route blinding, receiving on Lightning is not going to be very private. Sending is a lot more private. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. So in general, like this wallet and even when we get route blinding, it's going to be up to like wallet implementations and everyone to actually use that as the default method, right? Like we want privacy to be the default method, and we don't want people to, so often go outside of that. We're trying to create this like fence that protects the user, but while still giving the options to educate the user and leave those fences if they wanted to. So even when we get route blind and other things, like it'll depend on people's specific wallets implementing it, doing it the right way, and things like that. So like this wallet has kind of been built from the ground up to just make sure that your privacy is always like the default option. I think you're muted again.
Oh my God. All right. I think it's so important because when we talk about, building these tools, one of the things in Bitcoin that has historically been a challenge is the user experience has been difficult for novice users to really, or people that are new to it, to really dive in and be able to understand what's going on. And so I'm really, really excited about this new, and it's been happening for a while, but this new generation of tools that really, really effectively, I don't even want to say like have breadcrumbs, but they find the balance between presenting users with just enough information that they're able to interact with them effectively, but then create these little breadcrumbs that empower them as they're using the tool normally to be able to learn more and more. I think Sparrow, we spoke with Craig Raw recently, and Sparrow, I think, does a really, really good job of this. You can use the tool, that's Sparrow Wallet, which is a desktop wallet, of course. You can use the tool without understanding too much about how Bitcoin works, but it has these really interesting, graphics and like tool tips and everything that slowly guide you. They present enough information that if you're curious, you'll kind of like figure out what's going on. And then they, at the same time, guide you towards improving your privacy and using Bitcoin more effectively. So super excited to see what you guys put out as you build more on top of it. What do you think, Ben? I mean, you are you're part of, or what is your actual title at the Bitcoin company, the second coolest named company in Bitcoin?
HR.
Piece of shit.
I don't know I don't even know what my actual title is. I mean, I'm an early back engineer, so lead backend engineer, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there we do lots of selling gift cards and stuff, and trying to like help people live on their Bitcoin, and preferably as private as possible. So like right now we only accept Lightning. We are adding credit cards and stuff soon for the normies, but it's cool. We see like a lot of people like trying to use the product to like live on Bitcoin, or just even help their privacy, where we sell these like Visa cards for Bitcoin. So we get a lot of people like, either just like using that to like, unbank themselves in different parts of the world. Like we have a lot of Brazilian users I know that they'll use that and just like, go shopping instead of doxing themselves with their credit card every time, or just, letting themselves spend their Bitcoin. As well in the US, like, I don't want to, if I'm gonna like, go to a taco shop near me, I can swipe my credit card, and now my bank sees that I shop there. My now they know my location by that. And then that taco shop will now know my name and stuff like that, which is not always the best. So I can buy a Visa card and then swipe that. And now there's no information tied to me on that, so it helps a lot there.
Got it. And that is thebitcoincompany.com, correct rather?
Yeah.
Got it. What are some of the largest, like the largest challenges that you guys have faced, or that you specifically, working on the back end have faced as you've built out that financial product? Oh, also, I just want to give you guys props. The Bitcoin Company there were 3 different categories for pitch day at Bitcoin 2022, and the Bitcoin Company won one of them. And the trophy that you guys got was about like 7 feet tall. It was fucking enormous. And you looked amazing and hilarious hanging out by it. So congrats.
Yeah, we have it in our apartment now. We need to build it back again, but it's deconstructed in here. We have to take it on the plane. But yeah, the hardest part probably with the company has actually just been like dealing with the legal, regulatory, and like different partners. Like early on, we got deplatformed by like an email like marketing provider because we had anything to do with crypto. So we had like panic to find a new one. And as well, just like so many times we're like, we wanted to sell like TJ Maxx gift cards, and they denied us because we're something to do with crypto, or just other brands just like, oh, we don't do that. But otherwise, it's just like dealing with like regulatory stuff too, where our compliance officer is always mad at us, like, oh, you need to like, what if you sell a gift card to the Vladimir Putin? It's like, well, I mean, personally, I don't think that's bad, but SDN lists and OFAC stuff exists, so we shouldn't do that. So there's lots of stuff like that that is annoying to deal with. But otherwise, it's kind of cool to like talk to these gift card companies where they're like, because normally when you sell a digital gift card, it's like extremely high risk, where if I want to do a credit card payment for a Target gift card, you're gonna get tons of fraud where I get that gift card immediately, but I could just charge back the credit card payment. Now I just stole like $1,000 from that company. But with Bitcoin, you don't have to deal with that at all. You can instantly set a payment with Lightning, and there's no fraud risk. So like when we talk to these gift card companies a lot, we're like, oh, we'd like to sell new provider, get a bunch of new brands in. They're like, oh, how do you deal with fraud? How do you do like an online marketplace for this? We're like, oh, we just use Bitcoin, and they're like, oh, that's really smart. And it's cool to see like a lot of these people get a little bit of like an eye-opening moment there.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something which I think is an interesting pattern that's playing out in the Bitcoin development space, which is a lot of people, they start by asking like, hey, what can I do with Bitcoin, right? It's sort of like, I want to build on top of Bitcoin. I want to take something that exists already and then re-implement it, but involve Bitcoin. And the most successful products and services that are out there are using Bitcoin in a very different way. And I think I want to try to figure out how to encourage more people to do this, which is it's identifying things that Bitcoin and the Lightning Network solve better than anything else, and then building systems that can more effectively leverage those things in order to outcompete, the larger market. And I don't know, I just feel like we're seeing more and more. I don't know, what do you guys think?
There's something I really love about the service the Bitcoin company and others have provided when it comes to gift cards. Like I don't 100% live on Bitcoin yet. Like, surprise, like most people aren't on the 100% in, right? It's like usually at most like 99% and have a little bit of cash. But the thing I love the most about using the Bitcoin company is just so I can buy like this anonymously, buy a gift card and use that, like a Visa gift card, and use that anywhere online. So that way you hear of these leaks and these hacks happening all the time with every company that exists, right? And every single time that happens is like, oh, your credit card information gets leaked, like this gets leaked, your email address gets leaked, all of this is just getting leaked left and right, your IP addresses, everything, right? So it's like one of the things that I love doing is just like using, especially Lightning too, since like senders have pretty good privacy. I can pay for a gift card, Visa gift card with Lightning. I have some like anonymous account when the Bitcoin company had allowed anonymous accounts. I think they got rid of that so Vladimir Putin couldn't sign up with it. VladimirPutin@gmail.com or something. So I buy Visa International gift cards all the time, even as an American. I know I'm not supposed to with their app, but that's it's a great use. And I can pay for shit online anywhere in the world with a Visa card not tied to my name. I'm using email addresses that aren't tied to me. And just like spinning up a new one every time. So it's like it's a perfect use case for privacy because you can be compatible with the financial rails at the same time. It doesn't connect your source of funds. It doesn't connect your identity. It doesn't connect any of those things. And you're almost using them as a proxy to kind of like spend the money in the way that you want to spend your money without all the trade-offs of the privacy financial rails. I know I probably have said like 5 crimes there, but like that's why I love
these are all
those apps.
These are theoretical.
Yeah, in Minecraft. I do this stuff in Minecraft. It's
exactly.
Great.
Tony, this is a great time to let you know that actually we have from reliable sources that both Nancy Pelosi as well as Mitch McConnell watch us every day. They stop
awesome.
what they're doing.
Fuck themselves.
Exactly. So what else? What have you guys been spending a lot of time thinking about when you guys are hanging out together? What are Bitcoin related topics, especially specifically, of course, related to the Lightning Network, that have got either of you excited right now?
And me and Tony have been doing this like Lightning privacy research grant for a few months now. I'm not sure how long, but it's been a ton of fun. Just like kind of Like we've been like we do like a weekly call, and then we like a lot of times we'll bring in a guest and be like, oh, T-Bass come teach us about blinded pass, or we had Rusty Russell come and talk to us about Bolt 12 and other stuff, or we talked about trampoline routing, or we had like Dustin talk about splicing, just kind of get a bunch of like ideas flowing. And it's been a lot of fun. Like we're now working on like trying to write a whole set of like articles about everything we've learned and like kind of call to action to people as well. But I think that's kind of like what we probably spend most of our free time doing, or at least personally me. And I think that's a ton of fun. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm excited to share it all. Like once we have the huge like writings of everything.
Can you tell us more about that grant? Like, what is it? Where did it come from? How did you guys get it?
Yeah, so the grant is done by Wasabi, as well as it was like another nonprofit partnered with them as well. And basically like Wasabi was like, their theory is like, on-chain privacy can be solved through their wallet, but Lightning privacy is still something to work on. So we should, try to fund development to fix that. So, because in Bitcoin, we kind of theorize that Lightning will be like the future of payments and the scalability solution for Bitcoin. So if we're going to use Lightning, we need to like make it private as possible. So we've been just kind of iterating ideas and trying to make it better. And a lot of the ideas are like things we've pulled in just from the community that are already known, but some ideas we've been talking about are like less discussed things, or just ways to like merge things that we don't think have been thought of before. Things like something that like Tony came up with is like, oh, what if we had like every channel on the Lightning Network always in a coin join through splicing and stuff like that. So we could like, always be moving this channel around so that you can't even find it, from a bad actor and stuff.
You're going to have to define the term splicing.
So splicing is like pretty cool. So like today with the Lightning channel, you have it open with like, say I have a Lightning channel open to UP, and we have like 1 Bitcoin in it. But I want to close
That is
it.
a
And
girthy fucking Lightning channel.
Girthy boy. But I know this is too much girth for you. I want to make it half a channel. Go easy on you. So or half a Bitcoin. So normally what you'd have to do is just close the entire channel and then open a new one. And that takes 2 on-chain transactions, and that channel is now offline for like that time period of while that transaction is confirming. So a splice basically just lets you, into one transaction, just kind of like change that Lightning channel. So we can like change it to be half a Bitcoin. We can balance it in the way we want. And, we're able to just basically just redefine the channel terms while keeping it online only in a single transaction. And you can do this with many channels. Like you could just have like 1 channel that we're changing, or we could have 100 channels that not just us, but anyone on the Lightning Network is changing. So we could combine all these things into like make it a more private thing. And it's really cool because it really like splicing on its own is very powerful, just like without any privacy aspects, just letting you renegotiate these channel sizes, so you don't need to like rebalance, or a lot of times people use things like loop in or out to like rebalance, and you pay all these routing fees. Instead, you could just pay a single on-chain transaction fee and just fund it with an input, and be able to change the balance of these channels. Versus splicing, we just do this and it makes it much cleaner. I know only C Lightning or Core Lightning is working on it right now, but it would be awesome to see if it does come to like the full dream where we could get the coin joins and implemented and everything too with it.
Yeah, because imagine the aspect of like Lightning. What's the current numbers? Like I don't know. There's like hundreds of millions of dollars locked up in Lightning channels, right? And they're all being used to route on Lightning. But imagine if at the same time they're providing to liquidity for coin join solutions. So you could be like collecting routing fees at the same time contributing to the coin join and on set at the same time. So like I think it's like really powerful. There's still a lot of like things to figure out, and actually like how would this be implemented. Like we don't even have splicing yet, like all these like answered questions. But just in theory, like imagine that you have these unannounced channels, and you're even like you hide them behind a public channel, and then you're still even routing and coin joining and maybe even collecting coin join fees on top of it too. So I think there's something there that's pretty powerful, because like Lightning as a network, like I said, there's some privacy gains too. So like what if we combine the two, like coin joining and private and Lightning privacy at the same time? I think that's pretty powerful.
Got it. So shifting slightly, have either of you read this article that came out a couple days ago? It's Mass Exit Attacks on the Lightning Network. It was published
No.
by, let's see, University of Illinois.
No, I must have missed that one.
Yeah,
All right.
same.
I won't dive into it. Then I was gonna get your guys' read on it.
No. If you read anything on it, you bring it up. We probably know some things on it.
Yeah, I mean, so they talk about. They said we study the susceptibility of the Lightning Network to mass exit attacks in the presence of small coalition of adversarial nodes. It's a scenario where an adversary forces a large set of honest protocol participants to interact with, the layer 1 blockchain. We focus on two types of attacks. The first is a zombie attack, and then the second is a double spend attack. And they kind of go through, and there's I think that their conclusion is that they say under historically plausible congestion conditions, a very small coalition, for example, a coalition of just 30 nodes could lock funds of 31% of the channels for about 2 months via a zombie attack, and could potentially steal more than 750 BTC via a mass double spend attack if the Watchtower algorithm did not make use of sophisticated strategies. And as I was reading through it, it just seemed like there were a ton of assumptions that were being made.
Yeah, this sounds similar to like the flood and loot attack kind of paper, where basically like if you like mempool's full and you mass close a ton of channels, now people need to broadcast the correct state so they can get their money back. And if the attacker just broadcasts like the invalid state where they get all the money, then you could be screwed. But this is like, it does take a lot of assumptions. Like the mempool needs to be completely full for that 2-week window that you can't get your transaction in. And you can't, and then also assuming you can't bump the fee of your closing transaction and all this stuff. So, it's pretty, a lot of assumptions, like you said. It's pretty, and today like mempool is pretty empty, so it's not totally doable. But if it was like a disaster scenario, or like like when China banned mining and the mempool is like 200 sats per byte, maybe it's like something this is feasible, but it's going to take a pretty sophisticated actor to try to do that.
Yeah, but even even if they like actually go through and like close enough channels to make sure that they do flood the mempool, actually, like it is, everyone could be bumping up their transaction until they can't bump up anymore, but everyone will be racing to bump up their transaction, because anchor channels are supposed to like help solve the unpredictable fee aspect of it, so you can bump up your channel close. But if everyone's doing it, then not everyone's going to be able to get in. That's a really interesting paper. I gotta read it to understand it more, but I believe it.
Yeah, I'll send it over to you guys.
This thing too, it has like humongous risks. Like if they do it and fail, they lose all the money they put up in those channels. Because if I'm able to broadcast that correct state, I take back all the money from their side of the channel. So they lose all of their money if they do this. So it's extremely risky thing to try to do.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite term in the Lightning, flood and loot sounds like a badass attack. It's like the name of a some kind of like it's a great band
James
name.
Bond movie.
Yeah, flood and loot, the flood and loot attack. And then also just when using Watchtower as the justice transaction is an incredibly badass sounding thing. And just for everyone listening, one of the I don't know what to say, the sort of mitigation strategies that we can use in the Lightning Network is you have another node that basically is watching the channel state for your nodes. And basically, if your node goes down for any reason and someone tries to cheat you by publishing a false channel state, then normally what would happen is your node, when it's online, it would basically publish the true channel state, and then the person who's trying to cheat you would lose their funds. But if for some reason your node is offline and you have a Watchtower watching it, then the Watchtower can publish the justice transaction. And so if anybody tries to cheat you, there's this really strong incentive to not do that, because if they try and they fail, or if the person has a Watchtower, then, or rather they have a Watchtower and they fail, they then lose all their funds to what I think I was referencing a second ago, or Tony.
Yep, and there's this kind of joke that I like to say is, I like to say, oh yeah, Watchtower. No, I don't have a Watchtower. So, oh man, my node's down. Oh man, well, it would really suck if someone were to try to attack me right now, right? Like, no one knows if I actually have a Watchtower or not. So, like I say, I don't have a Watchtower, and if everyone's like, oh, let me go steal Tony's funds. His node is down. I'm like, oh, joke's on you, actually. Like, and that mechanism, the justice transaction, that's like kind of also called like LN penalty, like the mechanism that Lightning operates on. So like if I say if because who knows when this is actually going to happen, but we're supposed to be getting L2 at some point in our lives, right? ELTOO, and like that actually removes the LN penalty mechanism, the justice transaction. I think I don't know if they call it the justice transaction or not anymore. There's still this transaction where you can get the funds back, but it's not justice in the terms of like you take all the bad actors' funds. So there could be a mechanism or like this opportunity almost for bad actors under L2 to just go ahead and try to like scam people, and it's not actually going to hurt them in any way. Like worst case scenario, they paid channel closing fees, and like how much are you willing to spend to attempt to steal someone else's funds? So in the current mechanism, you actually have to risk all the funds that you may be gaining, so it's like 100% loss on your end. But if it's just like a worst case scenario 0.1% loss, how much are you willing to spend to scam?
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that about L2. I think you're right, by the way. I don't think it's called the justice transaction anymore, but I will always refer to it as the justice transaction. And one of the things that I really like about, I rail about this a lot on the show, but one of the things that is so compelling to me about Bitcoin is the incentive structures that are in place. Famed Cryptokeeper and necromancer Charlie Munger is famous for saying, you show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And in Bitcoin, in layer 1 Bitcoin, the incentive structures that are in place are such that, the thing that is best for an individual also supports the larger network, overall. And the Lightning Network to me is like a microcosm of that. It's like the same kind of things that are happening, but sped up almost. And, I was one of the people that got together and started PlebNet. And one of the things that we found, or that I personally found, is, it was like, I was talking about this with the other Ben recently, but it's almost like playing a real-time strategy game, right? You're basically, if you choose to be a crazy person and run your own Lightning node, which is like, everybody can just use a Lightning network right now by going and downloading a wallet that supports the Lightning network and can be sending and receiving transactions almost instantly for very low fees. So you can do that today. You don't have to understand any of the stuff we're talking about. You can just, take advantage of it and get access to the benefits. Then there's like, merchants who want to be accepting Lightning payments, and they want to be able to do that in a way where they don't want to use a third-party app like Breeze. They want to basically run a node so that they can receive payments. And then at the other, the extreme end, there's people who are interested in running their own Lightning node so that they can learn about how it works and potentially earn fees by being a routing node. So the way the Lightning Network works is as your node is positioned within the Lightning Network effectively, people will route through you, and every time they do, you earn a base fee, and then you also earn a fee based on the amount of sats, the total amount that flows through your node, for each transaction. And so it becomes this like, real-time strategy game like StarCraft almost, where you're like trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to set my channel fees here to incentivize people to route in this direction. And then I'm going to set it lower over here in order to, incentivize it to route in this direction. And, you were just mentioning, Tony, the idea of being like, oh no, my node is down. If only someone would be kind enough, and then basically they try to attack you and then you steal all the funds back. And yeah, it's incredibly engaging.
There's Lisa has talked about it before, Nifty and I, about this idea that you could kind of almost recreate some of that. What is it called? The MEX, MEV.
Minor extracted value.
Yeah, miner sector value stuff. You can almost kind of like recreate that on Lightning in a way. Like there's some scenarios there where, when miners start getting into the game of Lightning, it's almost like the same. I don't know if it's state chains or like space chains or like one of them, but like the idea of like introducing different incentives on that are operate on different layers than Bitcoin. How do those incentives line up, right? So like if um, for maybe this flood and loot attack, or maybe, there could be some attacks that like if the miner was also a Lightning node, those change the incentives too. They may actually participate in other attacks if they were running their mining operation as well. So like there's this idea of like me and you as users with a channel together, we may do certain things and may not do other things, right? But like when you introduce a miner that's running a Lightning node, that's a whole different story. And I think we'll
Interesting.
eventually start seeing that as well. And yeah, I think she came out with an article on it. I forget where it was. It's probably on her Medium or something. But there's all kinds of incentives that could that we haven't even like thought of yet, or something, or it's just on the edge of even thinking about it. So yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, what do the incentives say? If the incentives say that a miner could be, a bad actor and this still works out, or is it like if enough miners were bad actors, like then does Lightning still operate? Even beyond like there's the whole 51% attack. Like if we hit 51%, like we're kind of all fucked, right? But even below that, is there other avenues where a miner could try to extract value by being a bad actor without like getting 51% of the network?
But I mean, even if they did have 51% of the network, they could only there's a limited attack that could be perpetrated against the Bitcoin network, right?
Basically, just double spins, right? But
Yeah,
that could spill over into Lightning too.
no, that would be interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. Huh. So we talked about. So I think I asked this at the beginning, and forgive me if I already did, but what other technologies related to, we're talking about the Lightning Network, what other things in the Bitcoin space, whether it's companies that are starting up or, new protocols that are being proposed that have got you guys really excited that we haven't talked about so far in this conversation? Ben, you want to go first since you've been quiet for a while?
Yeah, I think Fedimint's probably one of the biggest things that's like happening now in the space. It's pretty cool. It's like using this thing called a Charman eCash server. It's basically like the kind of the properties of it. It's perfect privacy but fully custodial, and it's funny because it's something that was invented like 30 years before Bitcoin was, and like initially like some banks used it, but it got like either like shut down or just failed, and then it was just kind of been like, oh, this is a cool idea but failed in the fiat world. Now people are trying it again on Bitcoin because now they can make these Fedimints like interoperable between each other, where you can have like multiple banks that talk to each other through Bitcoin, and it's all Bitcoin denominated, but you still can have this perfect privacy on top of it. So I think it's going to be like a really cool solution to potentially like having another way to do privacy on Bitcoin. It will be custodial, but I think like the idea is it's a Fedimint, so it's a federation running it. So it's a lot harder. You can't just have like one person rug pull. You need to be a collection of people, and if you make it sufficiently large, it should be safe enough for amounts to keep on there for privacy.
Love it.
Yeah,
Tony,
I
what about
agree.
you?
Fedimint, man. It's from a privacy standpoint. I think it's really exciting. I mean, yeah, there is a custodial aspect, right? But I think, I mean, even myself, like I'm not going to be using it because I'm not capable of custody, right? Like I want to use it so that the spending money that I have and the daily, spending and receiving that I may do on a mobile wallet, like I want that to be as private as possible. And even with Lightning, even with PLN, just how I described it earlier, like, there's still Lightning channels. There's still like being online. There's still like liquidity issues, receiving. You need inbound liquidity to receive on Lightning. So you need channels open, and then you need all these other things involved. Like that's, not practical from like an everyday standpoint in a lot of ways, and for everyone, right? So if I want just like a Lightning wallet that works really well. And Fedimint actually integrates with Lightning incredibly well. You can like bounce between federations, but just going through Lightning. All kinds of amazing things you can do with just their Lightning integrations. Like they basically have Lightning gateways that are attached to the federation, so that a Lightning gateway will honor, the tokens from the federation that it's attached to. And through that mechanism, you can basically receive on Lightning atomically. So, the Lightning gateway will accept the funds on your behalf, and you'll receive tokens for them, these Fedimint tokens. And the Lightning gateway can't just like run off with your funds. Sure, like the federation, if it was all a majority bad actor, you may lose some funds there. I mean, you're trusting the federation, but like to me, I'm fine with like trusting the federation with like a month's, even like a month's worth of spending money, whatever I'm talking about, like a few $1,000s worth of spending money at a time, and to be able to receive the privacy guarantees that Fedimint provides. So like to me, that's an acceptable risk. And you're not just trusting them with your privacy too. Like you can go to Coinbase, and Matt Odell likes to talk about how like some people will just pay him through Cash App. And then that way Matt doesn't see their Bitcoin wallets, right? He just sees that it's coming from Cash App. So he can't see, he doesn't work at Cash App. He doesn't have Cash App's data. So he can't see, the users hiding is trusting Cash App with their privacy. And that way no one can like analyze their data and their transactions. But with Fedimint, you're not just trusting Fedimint with your privacy. Like they literally don't know what your transactions are, what your Bitcoin are. They gave you a token at some point that's blinded. So when you go to spend it later, they have no idea if that's still you or not. Like the most they can do, and you can do Fedimint in all kinds of different ways, but like even in the scenario where it's a KYC based federation, which I'm sure will exist, and there will be non-KYC ones and KYC free ones and stuff like that. Even if you're just like a single identity at a federation and you're receiving these these blinded tokens, the worst they can do is just see how much tokens you have ever received, but not necessarily, they won't know how much you currently have. They won't know when you've ever spent it, where you spent it to. So there's a lot of beautiful privacy benefits to using Fedimint, and it's not just trusting them with your privacy, it's trusting them with custody, but it's got some really great privacy guarantees there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think is so interesting, what you guys both touched on, but is that it allows you to rely on kind of existing real world trust structures. So this federation can be composed of people from these existing very strong social networks, like your the leaders in your local community or your church or your group of friends, where it becomes way more effective than or the trust structures that you are relying on are potentially more reliable than what a lot of people use right now, which is you're just trusting a third-party entity like your bank. There's not even a person who is like that you're trusting. It's just this entity, which is a much higher risk. And I think you mentioned Odell. One of the things that is so compelling to me about Fedimint is people will use the simplest thing that they can, and so that meets their needs basically. And so right now, a lot of people continue to use exchanges and systems like that because it is the easiest thing, right? It's easy to send somebody Cash App payments, send Bitcoin via Cash App and just use that. But Fedimint aims to, and I think will really effectively kind of bridge that gap. So it's not as sovereign as full self-custody, but it does a really good job of finding the balance between trust and also ease of use, and kind of somewhere in the middle. And I think it's going to be to your guys' point, a really important aspect of hyper Bitcoinization as we go forward.
Yep, and beyond just the privacy benefits, like it is also trying to solve the grandma use case, where like even grandma can start receiving on Bitcoin.
Exactly. All right, so what do you guys think is the largest? I'm going to say the largest threat to Bitcoin or Lightning, but I want to specifically focus it on things that people are not really talking about enough. Like, what do you guys think is the largest attack vector, whether cultural, technological, that people are sleeping on right now?
I think I'm sometimes worried about Lightning. There's again, going back to Matt and Citadel Dispatch, I've been on a few times. If your listeners out there haven't heard of Citadel Dispatch, definitely subscribe. Episode 69 was a great one. I was on it. But it's I love Lightning so much, and it's where I spend a lot of time on it, and it's a lot of fun. But I it could turn into something that you talk about incentives, you talk about all these probing vulnerabilities and channel we even talked about some of the many vulnerabilities to Lightning and some of the holes. It's a little bit of a concern sometimes. Like, could it fail? Like, I mean, I think like at the end of the day, even if I just open a channel with Ben, and me and Ben are like we're gambling a lot, and we're just playing casino games at home, and we can go through each other, and that's fine, right? But when you start introducing the network aspect of it, when you start introducing like DDoS attacks, you start introducing the routing mechanism. Bolt 12 is going to introduce a lot of like possible spam vectors with just passing messages across the Lightning Network. Like, there's all these holes that I don't think there's great solutions for yet. I mean, like channel jamming is a thing as well that we've just like hand waved because like no one's actually going through and channel jamming people. But like you can do that today. You can actually go through and jam people's channels, but like no one's talking about it because no one's actually doing it. And so I don't know. It's I'm concerned that Matt. Oh yeah, the reason I brought up Matt, he keeps saying like Lightning is not operating in an adversarial environment, and like that's 100% true. Like, you don't see the Lightning Network being used in darknet markets. You don't see people getting attacked left and right with the current vulnerabilities that exist on Lightning. So if we want to progress forward, I think we have to like try to get ahead of these vulnerabilities, and that's another reason why I did the private channel probing stuff, is because like, hey, this is a vulnerability and people could be executing it. Let me just actually execute it and say, okay, do you guys like this or not? Like, let's try to fix it. And so I don't know, maybe the next thing I do, I just start going through channel jamming people and saying, do you like this or not? Like, let's actually try to fix this. Because it's a vulnerability. If we want to progress Lightning even further, we need these attacks to happen, and we need to actually actively fix them and make sure that we don't introduce protocol vulnerabilities that cause it to get worse.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I do echo a lot of Tony's concerns about the Lightning. Like, it definitely is like I like to say a lot. Like, Lightning's kind of a LARP right now. Like, it's awesome. It's very usable for what you can do, but it's very nascent and new. Like, I think it was in 2019 we had the bug where you could just open a channel and tell your counterparty it's 1,000 Bitcoin, and they would just trust that. They didn't actually check how much money you sent them, so you could just like steal tons of money. There's lots of issues like that, and lots of these things have been fixed, but it's still very new, and we have like all these implementations that try to be compatible. They lots of times accidentally just fall out of compatibility and stuff. So it is something that people are working on and trying to make better. On the Bitcoin side, I think like we're doing a very good job. I think like keeping it very like we rarely ever soft fork, and we never hard fork. Try to keep it so like very conservative and like targeted on what we're doing, and it's been going very well. I still think on the actual like human side we could be improving, like things like like your personal security and like key security is something that could be improved a lot. Like most people just use like a single sig, and if I knock on their door with a gun, I could probably steal most people's Bitcoin, and that's not very good. Things like multi-sig or covenants could help this a lot. That are things that multi-sig exists today, but isn't very easy to use, and lots of times people end up using things like Unchained, which is great, but it's KYC'd, and you have a trusted third party now inside of your multi-sig. And if we can make that easier, or something like covenants where we could make it so you literally can't spend your Bitcoin unless it goes to a separate wallet, or I have to wait X amount of years before I can spend my Bitcoin, and make it a lot better.
You both gave good answers, surprising no one. What else? I mean, we have, 10 minutes left. I'm curious, what have we not talked about? What do you guys want to just like riff on together? What about that money that Tony owes you, Ben, for that thing that we can't talk about live?
He owes me money. Yeah, he owes me lots of money. All of his Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay.
No, all joking aside. What have we not talked about today that's worth diving into?
Meetups.
Ooh.
I think Bitcoin meetups are extremely important, and people need to focus on them more. And you guys are doing a fantastic job in Nashville. I think here in Austin we're doing a pretty good job as well. And I don't know. I think like more people need to like, I don't know, maybe like take ownership and like feel a sense of pride in your meetup. Like they're like, for one, they're fun, but like it's a fantastic network where like I mean personally I've made tons of friends through our Austin meetup and going to other people's meetups. I've met lots of like really awesome Bitcoiners. It's also like an extremely good tool. Like you can, find potential like jobs or hires. You can, find people to buy and sell Bitcoin to, KYC free, all these things. So I think something very important. I love like what you guys are doing in Nashville with the Bitcoin Park. That is like amazing. And here in Austin we have the Commons, which is pretty great. And yeah, it's, I don't know. I think people more need to like find meetups or start one. Like like here at the Bitcoin company, we have an intern right now, and he's going back to college in a couple of weeks. And he's like, "Oh, should I start a meetup at my college?" I'm like, "Definitely. Like, you need to like, like there's so, like he's saying that, oh, everyone's a shitcoiner there. I'm like, then you definitely need to like inform these people, help them out, as well as just like bring people in, show them like what cool things you can do with Bitcoin, show them all the awesome stuff that we're doing, and like just talk about it."
Yeah, the Bitcoin Park, what they're doing over there in Nashville is amazing. If you are in Nashville or thinking about coming, you should absolutely go find out when the next one is. There's one tomorrow. Exactly. It's going to be
I'm in town for that shit, so you better come. If you're like in the Nashville area and you don't show up, you suck.
You hate America and Christmas and Q specifically.
Mainly just the me part, but I got goodies.
Yeah. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, on that topic too, I mean, the meetup tomorrow is like all about, I know Rockstar's doing, it's all about like digital identity. That's kind of the theme for the week. There's like a little catch-22, right? And when you're talking about privacy, it's like the privacy paradox. It's like, here we are talking about privacy, yet we're just like all face doxed everywhere. On stage in Miami, like a Target, like we're all Target. We're like almost LARPing about privacy in some way. It's like we care so much about it. But we have to make trade-offs, right? And you can be like, you can be an anon, that's not to say I don't have like many different anons all over the internet, right? But it's like, there's still some sort of, if you want to get like the most amount of work done and the most amount of networking and the most amount of, reach, it's like being public is unfortunately like one of the, I'm going to say easier paths to go down. You just become face docs. You use your name. You use something that people can relate to, people can trust, they can honor. But you don't always get that by being an anon. So like, if you're, I would always say like, if I would start from scratch, I would just show up to the Bitcoin meetup and just like under a completely different name, like a completely new like Twitter account. Like if you're just getting in, the sad thing is like it's preaching to the choir, right? If you go to like a Bitcoin meetup and you say, hey, here's why your identity, should be private. Here's all the things you can do. Well, you already showed up with your face under a name before like the meetup even started. So like there's a lot of paradoxes when it comes to privacy. I mean, it may seem like we're LARPing sometimes when we try to like say privacy is important, and yet here we are, all public, on stage in Miami, like in front of thousands of people, right? Like it's I don't know, it's like a necessary evil in a way. I don't know. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that.
I think I completely agree, right? In many ways, we are privacy LARPing, right? And I think I certainly went through this process when I kind of started engaging with people about Bitcoin publicly. I grew up in a household of of kind of like, numismatists, gold bugs. And it was like, the first rule of this asset is you never talk about this asset. And so that kind of transitioned with me over into Bitcoin. So, for years, I just never talked to anybody about it. And then, with COVID and everything, I just started losing my mind, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go on Clubhouse and just say whatever I want. And, yeah, I mean, it definitely creates a risk. And for me, there was the aspect of I gained so much by interacting socially with other people that the benefits outweighed the costs. So I was learning so much. I was being challenged to think about Bitcoin in new ways that I just couldn't get by only interacting more passively and protecting my identity. But yeah, it's definitely a significant trade-off. And if you're just getting into Bitcoin, I agree. Everybody should be using a NIM. NIMs that sound like real names are better than ones that don't. Find an image. I think there should be a whole line of like full facial prosthetics that just, you can wear at all times, 24/7, when you're working with your family, with your kids, make sure your family doesn't even realize what your real face looks like. You got to just protect your identity at all times. 100%.
He just wants to normalize all the plastic surgery he's gone through, because if you guys didn't realize this, he is about, I believe, 183, 184 years old.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to tell people that, but since you did, yes, it's true.
Yeah. He has truly the best privacy system of all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think an important distinction here as well, though, like there's like operational like privacy, like keeping your face not doxed and stuff, and there's also like financial privacy. Like me going on the show tells no one how much Bitcoin I own. Now people probably know I own Bitcoin, but I don't know, I lost it on a boating accident. But I could have 1 million Bitcoin, I could have $100 of Bitcoin, and no one knows. But if I fuck up my like on-chain privacy, people could find out that I have like 1 million Bitcoin, and obviously I don't want people to know how much Bitcoin I have. So there's like different like levels of doxing and what you're actually doxing, and kind of the whole point of privacy is like I try to be private, but like also like I invited people to my birthday party and stuff, and so it's something I don't just tweet out, today's my birthday, but also my friends know what my birthday is, because I selectively choose who can know information. So I think we all have decided that it's okay for someone to know what my face looks like, but I'm not going to say I own 1 million Bitcoin. I'm not going to say my birthday is today, or whatever. Like you can selectively choose different information to reveal to people.
I'm curious your thoughts then, and of course, happy birthday, Ben. In case anyone didn't know, it is Ben Carman's birthday.
It is actually his birthday.
It's
Yeah,
definitely my birthday.
What are your thoughts then on like the stack chain, when people are posting, and some people may not do the best at covering up their sort of tracks, and you're able to see that transaction ID, or you're able to see the time it happens, what exchange they're using? Like, thoughts on just the stack chain movement and how it feeds into privacy?
I think it's cool. Like I like the idea of just everyone incrementing $1, and they're up to like a lot of money now. And yeah, it is something like if you like screenshot, like I bought 0.12345, like the exact number of Bitcoin, and then you withdraw it, like more than likely you're able to find the transaction ID pretty easily. And then if they later combine it with other coins or do something, you're gonna be able to like get their wallet cluster, which is not good. So there's like trade-offs there, but luckily like some things, like I think like River and Swan have like ways to like share it, but they like blur out the number. Or if you just share like the US dollar amount, you might be a little safer. But yeah, it is something to be like warrant of, like you are doxing that you're like buying Bitcoin, and if you give an exact amount, people are gonna be able to find that pretty easily.
Same thing with like the LN Trust chain. It was a great movement, but it is like everyone's just posting invoices on Twitter and saying send the trust chain my way. Like invoices reveal a lot about yourself. Like it leaks your node pub key, right? And then all the public channels are now associated. All the UTXOs making up those public channels are now associated with you. It's like, imagine if you just tweeted out your XPub right now. Like that's pretty shit. So like we're all tweeting out Lightning invoices, and I think they can still kind of fit in a tweet. Sometimes they don't. but we're tweeting those out, and that's like linking to our nodes as well. So like, I'm not. While the Lightning Trust Chain was like a great movement and got people playing with it, got a lot of interest. It is kind of not great to be tweeting out private information, or not even just private information, just associating information to you that is otherwise, somewhat anonymous or pseudonymous.
So, my friends, we're coming close to the end of our show today, and I want to give you both an opportunity to basically talk about how people can find you, promote the things that you're working on right now, and get everybody excited. So, Tony, do you want to start?
Yeah, right now I'm not really online anywhere. Sometimes I feel like I live under a rock. You can find me in Austin or Nashville. I won't be in Nashville this week, unfortunately, but great meetup going on there. Yeah, just find me in person at a Bitcoin meetup. Yeah, it's been awesome chatting with you guys.
Fantastic. And Ben, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find you? How can they?
I'm at Ben the Carman on basically everything, or find me at Austin Bit Devs. I'll be in Nashville this weekend, so don't kill me, but come hang out with me. And I don't know, yeah, come buy gift cards at the Bitcoin company. Use code LOVE and you get I think 100 sats or something. Yeah.
Good stuff. Did you see the movie posters that I made of your name in advance of this?
No.
Oh, I sent them to you over Twitter. I'll give me a sec. I'll pull them up because they're
Okay. First off, I'm just saying now, if and when AI takes over our society, it is all P's fault. It is all
100%.
P's fault.
And
And secondly, Tony, if you don't come through tomorrow, I will take personal offense to that.
P, you tagged my scammer account.
Oops.
Oh, right. Well, he's going to take those images. Yes. Sorry, Q. That's why I'm not going tomorrow.
We need to get rid of that fucking scammer account.
I agree. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, those are awesome.
That's actually where you can find me. I own Ben the.
Okay, wait. Say it again. What is your actual Twitter handle, and what is the Twitter handle that everybody should report as a scammer?
Mine's Ben the Carman, no underscores, no nothing. The scammer is Ben the _Carman.
You can also get to Ben's Twitter account by typing in the bitcoincompany.gay. That also redirects to Ben the Carman.
Well, yeah.
All right,
Go
my
to
friends.
lightning.gay to see all hidden Lightning Network stuff as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Q, you want to tell the people what they need to know, and then we'll get ready to shift over to our next show.
I just want to remind everyone that you need to lock in your tickets to Bitcoin Amsterdam right now. Use promo code BMLive. You got to do it for the children. P and I are the children we're talking about. So please save us. Buy a ticket to Bitcoin Amsterdam. And of course, if you are tuning in because you went and listened to Pete Rizzo earlier, you have to go and buy the print mag from the Bitcoin Magazine store. Use promo code BMLive to get 10% off of that, or a whole subscription to the quarterly print mag. We're going to cut to commercials, and we're going to be joined by CK and Ansel for a new episode of Fedwatch. We'll be back.
Adios. Thanks so much, guys.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fedwatch. My name is Ansel Lindner, and I am here with CK _ Snarks. How are you doing, CK?
What's up, Ansel? I got quite the setup here. Q upgraded the home base setup for me, so excited to jump in with some high fidelity audio.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the digs there. I saw is he just across the table from you?
No, I switched spots with him, but he
Okay.
left the little studio we got set up here at the BTC or the Bitcoin Magazine studios.
Awesome.
Hey,
Awesome.
best damn macro show on the internet. Thank you very much. Let's get it, baby.
Hell yeah.
Ansel's the best analyst on the internet. I'm just some idiot.
Oh, no. There's people much better than I just learned from the best. But I was in the chat before the show, and some people are calling me Ransel, and I don't know if I like that nickname. But as soon as I say I don't like it, then it's going to become a thing. So, but anyway,
man.
thanks for watching, everybody. Big show lined up.
Yeah, a lot of international stuff.
Yeah, a couple stories one that might be flying under the radar, and one obviously that everyone's talking about, Taiwan and China.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, thought we'd talk about the Bitcoin chart and maybe some currencies and go from there.
Let's do it.
All right. So up front, the first one here is the Bitcoin weekly chart. This is the one that Q seems to like a lot. It shows the volume by price on the right-hand side. And man, the weekly candles have just been so boring. No volatility. I mean, pretty much flat for the last 3 weeks. If you go to the next image, that is zooming out a little bit. And I tried to look for a comparable time to this. Maybe you could say early 2022, but I think it's more comparable to some of those candles that we saw back in September, October of 2020. So, Christian, what are you thinking about the price? What do you think about the charts? Where do you think we are in the Bitcoin cycle? All that.
I mean, it's tough to tell right now. Generally speaking, the longer that we kind of stay at a similar price range, the scarier it gets that it might just dump down. I like to see momentum. So the chart right now, it looks like higher highs and higher lows. But if we just keep seeing, drawn out kind of consolidation, it could always dump down. And we've seen bear markets where it's consolidated or even had a little rally only for people to dump. I really like to look at what miners are doing, especially public miners. They have to report their sales, and a lot of miners, I saw a tweet, it was really interesting. A lot of public miners are selling more Bitcoin than they're mining right now. So that means they're selling the rip. And that is obviously an indicator of a general bearish scenario. Obviously, I think that people should be in position to stack. You should have cash flow. You should have some dry powder at all times. But yeah, I mean, nothing new here. What do you think?
Well, that's an interesting stat. So I think the net accumulation by miners is still positive, though, correct?
I mean, I honestly don't know much. It's just, quarterly reporting from these public miners, and it sounds like, they're selling the rip still.
From the big names. Yeah, very interesting. I thought that I've been waiting for a nice big green candle on the weekly, but that has not come to fruition. So yeah, I'm starting to think that this is somewhat of a bear flag. I hate to say that, but we could dip a little bit here. I don't know. I'm still extremely bullish and 50-50 in the near term. Really, I'm not bearish or bullish, but I think we could rip. We could also dip a little bit here. So, okay, let's go to the next chart. That is the dollar DXY. I just want to update this because we talk about the dollar a lot here. And just to give a weekly update or bi-weekly update or whatever, we have the top kind of seems like it's in, but it has not fallen. We had a big rally and we have not seen a big dip consolidation here in the dollar. And I really don't expect that. Nothing in my analysis of the dollar has changed over the last couple weeks. But one thing that has changed over the last couple weeks is, if you go to image 4, this is the Hong Kong Monetary Authority press release. So if Chris, can you go to the next image, number 4? There we go. So every month they come out with their balance sheet. You know, how many foreign reserves are they still holding? And remember, they are pegged to the US dollar at 7.75 to 7.85 in a small little range. When it starts going towards that 7.85 and threatening to break out above that, that means that they have to actually sell dollars and buy Hong Kong dollars. So it's very important to know what their foreign reserve balance is. And I was expecting this to be a pretty big drop from last month. It came in at, let's see, 447 billion. And I thought we could get down to maybe 400 billion or something like that. But really, it's only been a $5 or $6 billion drop in their foreign reserves. So I'm thinking that the Hong Kong dollar is actually quite stable at this point. And that tells me that the kind of pressure in the financial system is less bad than I thought it was. So that's all I have for currencies. Do you have any thoughts on that, or thoughts on Bitcoin in the next couple of weeks, Christian?
I mean, I would say I'm unsure if stability in the financial system is bullish or bearish for Bitcoin. It seems like maybe a return back to normal, a little bit of stability is rocket fuel for all assets. But on the flip side, the narrative is supposed to be that Bitcoin is going to, replace, the system. Bitcoin, when the system fails, that's good for Bitcoin's price. So I feel like that's something that's kind of difficult to square still.
Yeah, the common idea is that Bitcoin is a hedge against these bad economic times coming in the future. When the market is doing well, I mean, what's the narrative for Bitcoin to do well? But hey, it's been correlated with stocks recently as well. And if stocks are going to go higher, then Bitcoin will probably go higher. And everything is good for Bitcoin, like you tweet out all the time. Everything is good for Bitcoin. Bull markets, bear markets, doesn't matter. Bitcoin will continue to kind of mutate and grow. So,
well, that's the thing, is like what I think people don't accept fully is that, like, Bitcoin has no standards. Bitcoin has no morals. Bitcoin has no boundaries. Like, Bitcoin is just gonna like take whatever opportunity is in front of it. It has no choice. It is, there's a Bitcoin Tina quote that Bitcoin's like water. You can't stop it and it gets everywhere. So, eventually it's going to seep into every aspect of the internet, every aspect of businesses around us, into all of the political and, geopolitical, game theoretic incentives. It's going to seep into all of that. So, I mean, that's why everything is good for Bitcoin, obviously, because, it has no boundaries. It's just going to do its thing.
Right. And it's permissionless, right? So you can build, if it's a bull market, maybe there'll be different companies coming out with different products that will help Bitcoin during a bull market. And when it's a bear market, you'll have the opposite. So the permissionlessness makes it able to adapt.
Here's an interesting example. It's like during the bull market, people talk about how public miners accumulate too much hash rate and that, they're centralizing Bitcoin hash. And then in a bear market, you see public miners and large scale miners dumping coins, but you also see them getting forced to dump actual rigs. And if anything, they're subsidizing the price of rigs to get to America and get built for, smaller scale miners and plebs. So there's this kind of like cyclicality, this kind of positive reinforcing that are happening within the Bitcoin ecosystem that I think is derived from the good incentives that exist within Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, really good point. Also, as a free market, then you would expect luxury goods, which might be the brand new cutting edge miner, could be considered a luxury good. The free market makes it so the luxury good actually trickles down to the common people. So maybe that's kind of a comparison there too. Anything else to add on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, keep stacking, y'all. There's a lot of uncertainty in the immediate term, but in the long term, the thesis is still sound. There are not making more Bitcoins, and there are a lot more people that are going to get into it. So it's really just a demand side thing, and I think the demand side is looking pretty bullish.
Yeah, especially when they see things like Pakistan, what we're going to get into next. So we saw, Sri Lanka collapse, right? That was about a month ago that the shit hit the fan over there, and they stormed their Capitol building or whatever. The same kind of looks like it's happening to Pakistan, and there's a couple of corollaries here. So of course, we all know that Sri Lanka was invaded by the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and they had kind of wrecked the agricultural sector of the economy by putting all of these ESG practices into effect. Very similar to how the Dutch are protesting this, and the Italians and the Poles and the Spanish, everyone over there in Europe are protesting these ESG effects on agriculture. Well, Pakistan is not immune from that. So Pakistan also has gotten a lot of money from the WEF. And this is a tweet from Imran Khan. That's their previous, I believe he's president, might be prime minister, but the head of their government. And he brought in the WEF. And now they have, spent hundreds of millions in Pakistan on agriculture, as well as possibly taking land away from agriculture and putting it towards national parks. So you can see kind of the trade-off that the WEF is pushing, but people are starving, right? So you don't necessarily want to get rid of your agricultural land. That's a corollary, or the same thing with Sri Lanka, but also China is in this ballgame. So China was a big player in Sri Lanka. They gave a bunch of high interest rate debt to Sri Lanka and forced them to bankrupt themselves to pay off this debt. And in the end, when they couldn't, they ended up taking the port, taking possession of the port. I don't know what's going to come of that in Sri Lanka, but the big port there was taken over by China. Now, Pakistan is also high on the list of getting Chinese debt. So I think Pakistan owes Chinese companies, not just the main state-run banks, but other companies as well, over $20 billion. And these are high yielding debt. I think it's roughly 6% on these Chinese loans, where the international average, like if you're lending to government or whatever, it's about 3 to 4%. So they're almost paying double to these Chinese lenders. So that is two very similar things with these two countries. And my kind of thinking on this is China has a lot of problems on its own, but now two of their star pearls in their Belt and Road initiative are going under. So I think it's the next slide is the map. Let's go to the one with the map. It's slide number 7. So you can see Colombo, that's the capital of Sri Lanka, and this Gwadar is this Pakistani port. And these were two very important nodes on the maritime route of the Belt and Road, as well as Pakistan having pipelines through it and everything. If Pakistan's government falls, perhaps the BRI also falls or has trouble. It's lost a lot of international clout over the last, I would say, 6 months with Sri Lanka. And if Pakistan, another very important node, goes down, BRI could have a really hard time ever coming to completion. So that's what I have for, let's see, what else? Do I have one more image? Yeah, that's if you go to number 6, let's do number 6. This is a chart of the Pakistani rupee, and this year it's down 35%. And that's just the tail end of this crash that's been going on. But the rupee is crashing. The government is only about 2 months away from total default. I think they said they have 2 months left of international reserves to help pay their debt. They're reaching out everywhere to try to find somebody to lend them money to get them through this next period. China has said no. The Arab states have said no. And now it looks like they're going back to the IMF. Now, the problem with the IMF is, there's always austerity attached. So the IMF said, okay, we'll rescue you, but you need to cut your subsidies on fuel, and impose all these austerity measures in your country and cut corruption and all of that stuff. So that is Pakistan's hard choice right now. Will they be able to do it? We will see. But the clock is ticking. The next couple months should be very interesting stuff going on, developments happening in Pakistan. And that's all I have on Pakistan. What do you got to respond with that, Christian?
I mean, one, it's really, really sad to see it all go down, but this has been something that has been talked a lot about on Fedwatch and in Bitcoin circles, but the kind of domino fall of fiat currencies and unstable regimes that were built on trash policies that were kind of just financed by fast and easy credit. All of that is starting to grind down to a halt, and we're starting to see these, nationwide destructions of credibility and defaults and destruction of fiat value. And again, it's insane to see the dollar just acting as this kind of like wrecking ball going and murdering fiat, but ultimately it's just like a sign of things are breaking, is that the dollar is destroying fiat, and at the same time the dollar is getting crushed against every other hard asset. So it's amazing to watch in real time, honestly, like we're living through history. And I think it's really important to point out, all of these, like I said, all of these examples, they're connected to China, they're connected to the WEF, they're connected to easy money that effectively created some sort of narrative, action, policy, initiatives, whether it's support, whether it's different farming practices that could not have been sustained and could not have been put into motion without that easy credit, without that, super kind of greater than the market activity. So I guess I'm kind of going on a rant here, but there's a very clear through line in general between these two examples, and I think we're just going to see a lot more of this to come. So I'm curious, Ansel. Do you have an indication of what's the next domino to fall? Like Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Maybe are we looking at more countries on this board? We've been talking about Europe being in a tough situation in general. Maybe it's the EU, but I could definitely see some smaller independent nation states going first.
Yeah, well, specifically in the realm of the Belt and Road stuff, I think Central Asia is going to have problems. Right now, they seem to be fairly united with Russia, and China is being a big supporter of the situation over there in Russia and Ukraine. But Central Asia has a lot of problems, because historically ethnic problems, and the U.S. left $5 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan is Pakistan's neighbor. It's also neighbors with Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan and all these other places. So I can see maybe some economic problems moving up into Central Asia from Pakistan. That would be my kind of wag at the future at this point.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to tell where the next kind of crack is going to emerge, but I think the only thing that's guaranteed is that more fiat debt-driven systems are going to continue to fall. Do we want to jump over to another kind of crack in geopolitics, which is what's happening with Taiwan and China?
Yeah. So before we bring up that chart, I just wanted to give a little background. So I didn't know where to start exactly on this. I know our audience is probably up to speed on all of the major developments. Nancy Pelosi went over to China and against the express wishes of the CCP, they really talked really tough that she is not welcome, etc. But she went anyway, and nothing really happened. So if you guys would join me on my Telegram live streams, I was kind of following this day by day and saying, no, China's not going to do anything. This is not going to amount to anything. And that's pretty much what we saw. After she left, they did start some military exercises. And so I have an image of that one. So if we could bring up slide number 8. This is just a map of some of the areas around Taiwan that they were doing strikes with their long-range missiles. They're also using their naval assets to go in and out of those boxes. The darker boxes closer to the Chinese coast, they are the historical kind of military exercise areas. These pink ones or the orange ones, whatever color that is, they are those are the new ones. And you can see number 4 is directly over Taiwan, and the missiles that they fired from mainland China were visible from Taipei. So that's pretty significant. But overall, it was not really that strong of a reaction. They launched a few missiles, they did a few things, but everyone knew that they weren't, at least I think most analysts, geopolitical analysts, knew that China wasn't going to attempt anything. I have a few quotes here that I wanted to read through. The first one is from, what's his name? Wang Yi. He's the foreign minister in China. I think the foreign minister to Taiwan. And he had a speech on the 5th, and that is the day I think Nancy Pelosi arrived in Taipei. And he was talking really strong. At the time, I pointed out that the Chinese, they're really into the art of war, and they're going to look strong where they're weak. And so all of this really strong rhetoric building up to this trip told me that they were weak there. We'll get a little bit more into that on the next quote. But here, this is what Yang Wei had to say, or Wang Yi. He stressed that the U.S. attempt to use the Taiwan card to contain China is only wishful thinking. It will by no means hold back the historical trend of Taiwan return to the motherland, nor can it stop the historical progress towards great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. The Taiwan Independence Forces attempt to seek independence by soliciting U.S. support is nothing but a fantasy, which is doomed to be a dead end, and it will only tighten the noose around their necks. Skipping down a little bit, regarding the U.S. allegation that China is changing the status quo in the Taiwan Strait, Wang Yi, said that this is an out-and-out lie and groundless accusation. Taiwan has never been a country. There is only one China in the world, and both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to the one and same China. This has been the status quo of Taiwan since ancient times. Yeah, right. Since the Democratic Progressive Party took office, that is the ruling party in Taiwan, it has been pushing for incremental Taiwan independence and de-Sinanization or de-Chinanization, and trying to create the false impression of two Chinas or one China and one Taiwan on various occasions. Isn't this blatantly changing the status quo? If Mr. Won Yat-sen were still alive, he would tell Tai Ing-wen, I think that's the president of Taiwan, that lady that met with Nancy Pelosi, to her face that she has betrayed her ancestors. And in another translation, I read that after ancestors, he said, and his race. So she has betrayed her ancestors and her race. So that's the type of rhetoric you're getting from China. Christian, stop me if you want to, but I'm going on to the next thing here.
I mean, it's just wild. Can you imagine that kind of rhetoric from any Western, politician? It's just, it is really wild. But I mean, you've been calling weakness here, and I'm sure as we continue to talk about China, we're going to talk about how poor their position is geopolitically.
Yes, and domestically. So it's starting to change a little bit domestically as well. You know, we've talked about the boycotts of the mortgages, of the pre-sale homes. We've talked about bank runs going on in China. So domestically, they're having problems. And this case is no different. So here's another article. I'll include it in the show notes. I'll link to this because this is the first time I've read this blog, but it's from ChinaTalk.media. And the headline is Elite China Copes with Pelosi Visit. Nationalists and moderates alike cope with China's underwhelming reaction and turned the PLA into a Weibo laughing stock. The example they cite here is someone put that chart that I just showed you, the map of the exercise areas on Weibo, and this was the top response. Quote, I get not going to war, but next time don't talk so tough. It's embarrassing to listen to. The next quote, so useless. We're a laughing stock. Next quote, rather we'd save the money. So the Chinese netizens, as they're called over there, are not too impressed with the reaction from the CCP, the reaction from the PLA, and their think tanks as well. So scrolling down in this article that I have here, this is a quote from Professor Wang Wen. Wang serves as the executive dean at the Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University in China. And he's the executive director of the China-U.S. People-to-People Exchange Research Center. So he's supposedly some big think tank guy over there. He has a bunch of quotes in this article, but I'm just going to hone in on like 5 paragraphs here. Some netizens were disappointed that we had not used the opportunity to carry out an armed reunification with Taiwan, but they underestimate the wisdom of the present response. It is brilliant and rational, and it represents China as a responsible and peaceful global power. In terms of military power, China is more than capable of toppling Taiwan. That is reunifying with Taiwan by force. However, as I previously stated, armed reunification is a necessary but not sufficient condition for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. So they're talking about reunification, but I thought they were one China. I thought this is the whole policy that, one China here, one China in the Wang, what was this, Wang Yi's statements just a minute ago. Everything is about one China, but he's saying right here that they have to reunify with China by force. Anyway, continuing on, not only do we need to consider when to start the reunification process, but also how to best serve our national rejuvenation following the reunification. The crux is that China needs to outperform the U.S. in terms of economic power, attain financial and military strength comparable to that of the U.S., and develop an overwhelming capacity to counter international sanctions. By doing this, the U.S. will no longer be able to form an external force to interfere in our affairs after the reunification in the long run. Consider what would have happened if Pelosi's plane had been shot down, as some have speculated, or if armed forces had been used directly against Taiwan. Such actions could have resulted in a major military clash between China and America, possibly leading to world war. A major military clash with the U.S. is not the goal of China's foreign policy, nor is it the path to a better life for the common people. That's very important. The think tank folks over there in China are saying war with the West is not the path to a better life for the common people. Continuing, recall that Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, do not act unless there is something to gain. Do not use military force without the certainty of victory. Do not go to war unless the situation is critical. And that's what I have from these two. This is the Chinese and the Taiwan posts, their internet over there. So passing it back to you, Christian, what are your thoughts on what was just said there?
It's really interesting to hear the different perspectives from, the people in China, the people kind of like involved with the situation, the people kind of more on the ground. When it comes to kind of the netizens being critical, I'm honestly a little shocked to hear the negative criticism, just because my assumption was that there really wasn't any critical free speech that was allowed or sanctioned or possible. So, I personally am not a China expert. So I was a little shocked by, even that amount of disdain and that amount of, kind of critical commentary being tolerated. But with that being said, when you are looking at what is happening in China right now, like you said, domestically, people, despite this kind of totalitarian, uh, dystopian, techno surveillance state, people are still rising up. People are still getting fed up. So there is a point where enough people will break with the CCP and break with the enforcement. And once that happens, we could really see something crazy happen in China. So the fact that people are kind of emboldened and are becoming more emboldened, it'll be really interesting to see how it continues to shake out. But to be honest, like kind of going back to Nancy Pelosi going over to Taiwan, I was pretty surprised by the move. Generally speaking, I'm not the biggest Nancy Pelosi fan. But it does seem to have been kind of a very strong and correct geopolitical move on her part, despite a lot of criticism that was kind of happening beforehand. What's kind of your take there? I know that you also kind of agreed that, from a geopolitical perspective, that it was a shining moment for Senator or Congresswoman Pelosi.
Yeah, well, I despise her as well. I don't agree with what she's doing, but what I thought was that this was a kind of a big brain move for the U.S. apparatus, because China had no response to this. They're really weak with their credit collapse happening. I don't really have too many updates for the credit collapse this week, but so the credit collapse happening, plus this Belt and Road initiative with all of their kind of satellites that they are setting up along this Belt and Road seems to be collapsing. And now Pelosi snubs gives them a middle finger across the Taiwan Strait. That is, to me, kind of exposing the weakness of China. And that really probably was humiliating. Now, from like a CCP perspective, I'm no think tank person on the CCP, but I do follow several people that talk about this all the time. And my opinion is, this could weaken Xi quite a bit. And if Xi goes down, they have the 20th Party Congress coming up later this year. What is going to happen with that? There's going to be a lot of tension over there in China. This is not a time for them to start war, to start some conflict. So we could see something else. We could see some other provoking of China, perhaps sailing of a carrier through the Taiwan Strait. I don't know. But this is, and maybe I'm blind, because I look out at China and I see collapse coming. And a lot of people that I talk to, people in my Telegram channel, they always constantly ask me about the state of the U.S. and civil war in the U.S. And I don't see it, but maybe I am just blind to the problems in the U.S. and I'm seeing all these problems around the world. But I really do think that China is in the weakest spot right now, even weaker than Europe, which is surprising to say. So those are my thoughts on Nancy Pelosi.
Do we want to hit on this this graphic that you have documenting the failed payments from these Chinese developers?
Sure. Yeah, so I couldn't really find too much new stuff. I do know that the central government is trying now to bail a few people out, a couple billion here and a couple billion there. But this is a multi-billion, 100 billion or trillion dollar problem. So a couple billion here or there, it might just take the edge off for cronies, certain friends of the CCP, but it's not going to stop the total collapse of the real estate market. This chart right here is just showing the number of Chinese developers who have failed to pay their suppliers, not that have defaulted on their debt, but have failed to pay their suppliers and probably are having trouble completing projects or even starting projects. I don't know. But in June, it got up to 62%, which is 62% of all the Chinese property developers are having problems paying their bills.
That's big.
Yeah.
And this escalated quickly. It started at about a quarter at the beginning of the year. And it didn't take very long to get to over 50%.
Yeah, but you can see it did kind of slow down a little bit. It was at 61% in May and 62% in June. So perhaps there is some relief in the near future, but I don't know. I think that credit collapses happen, in acute phases. So perhaps they're just waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Yep. Gradually, then suddenly. That's typically how it goes. So it would be scary if that gets to, 100%. Obviously, we're already getting there. But again, when you build based on cheap credit, this is what happens. That's kind of the point about why we endorse Bitcoin, is because Bitcoin is this economic substrate that actually incentivizes for appropriate allocation of capital. And that's going to make a better world with a lot less waste, a lot less pollution, and hopefully happier people.
Yes, I did hear some other news as well about billionaires. So, Jack Ma, he's the Alibaba founder and Ant Group and all that.
Yep.
He recently got out of the country. So he gave up his controlling interest in his companies, and now I think he's in Europe somewhere. A lot of billionaires, I've heard this through the kind of grapevine or the macro rumor mill, that there's a lot of billionaires over there in China, maybe 100 or so, that want to get out of the country. And this is all coming to a head as well. Now, how do they flee? How do they flee with their money? They can't flee with yuan. They can't flee with $1 billion in gold, but they could flee with some Bitcoin. So we'll see if that puts a bid under the market. You're muted.
We've been talking about how Bitcoin is primed to benefit from capital flight that is going to be happening within collapsing economies like Europe, potentially within Asia and China in particular. So that's definitely part of the thesis here for Bitcoin, is that these are two separate systems: the collapsing debt fiat system and then the burgeoning Bitcoin system. And people are bridging between them. And as Bitcoin grows, it becomes a better and more palatable, economic space for people to build an economy and continue to build forward. So hopefully, as Bitcoin's features of permissionlessness, censorship resistance, digital bearer nature, all of those fantastic aspects of Bitcoin that we know and love, that makes it a great tool for people to eventually transition to that system as they need to leave where they're at, need to abandon the existing system.
Absolutely. And that's all I have on China. That's all. I didn't prepare anything on Europe. I thought we'd take a break from Europe this week. And
too much Europe bashing. Europe needs Bitcoin. Listen to my podcast with Stefan Livera.
I mean, they should have come out with their CPI. I didn't even see that released from the Europeans yet, but the US is having the CPI come out tomorrow. So what are the experts expecting? I don't know. I've been expecting to have CPI fall for the last few months, and that hasn't come true. But this month, even the Chicago or the Cleveland Fed, who puts out the inflation now predictor, we've talked on the show here about the GDP now. That is from the Atlanta Fed, and that's pretty accurate, I think. But the inflation now from the Cleveland Fed is saying that they expect this month to have the month-over-month CPI at 0.3% and the year-over-year CPI at 8%. So that would be down from 9.1 to 8.8, and down on the month over month from 1% down to 0.3%. I look a lot more, or I care a lot more about the month over month rate, because I think the year over year can hide a lot of nuance and a lot of different things that aren't obvious at first glance. So I like the month over month rate. That's what I got for CPI, man. That's it.
So CPI is finally going to go down. You've been calling for this for a while. Hasn't happened quite yet. What does that justify the Fed pivoting, or how does that affect the narrative?
Well, Powell has called for that he will pivot, or he will reevaluate his monetary policy when there are multiple months of consecutive PCE inflation declines. So this is the other measure, not CPI, but it's PCE, and that's the one that Powell really likes and the Fed usually uses. So if there's multiple month over month declines, that's when he will look at possibly pivoting. But I don't think it's up to them anyway. The market is in control. The market is going to tell them what's up. The 3-month, 10-year spread is still crashing. I think it got down to 11 basis points this morning when I checked it. So it is, everything about this market is screaming recession. It's screaming tight dollars, and the Fed has to, eventually they have to act, or people will just ignore them.
I guess what does that look like in terms of they have to act? Does that mean they have to pivot? But even if they pivot, do people still ignore them? I think that's potentially what could happen down the line once the myth of the Fed is bust. But I guess you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, the Fed gets their power from mythology around the Fed, and they have power. Their main power is in panic reduction. So if there's a acute crisis, they can come in and say, "Hey, I got your guys' back. I'm going to be a lender of last resort. I'll buy up whatever you need. Just calm down. It's okay. The market is not going to crash." And so they can talk the market into calming down and not panic selling everything. But this monetary policy stuff, they really don't have any slow walk capability. So what's going to happen is Powell is just kind of matching what's already going on in the market. That's my opinion. So if you look at his position last summer, so let's rewind to the summer of 2021. Inflation was starting to tick up. I believe in April, it broke 2%. And then by June, it was like 6% or something. So it was starting to tick up. And Powell was looking at this, and he thought it was transitory. But it kept going, and he needed to do something. He knew that a recession was coming because of, if prices increase, then eventually people aren't going to be able to afford more things, and that's going to slow down the economy, right? So he's already looking forward a year, saying there's going to be a recession in a year, and he did actually see that, because I believe there was a recession that in the first 2 quarters of this year. So he saw that coming. So to get ahead of that, what did he have to do? He had to pivot hard. He had to pivot really hard and get ahead of the narrative into tightening, and that's what he has done. Now he's continued on that narrative until something forces him to change, until the narrative goes the other way. Then he will race to get in front of that narrative. That's how the central bank works. They look like they're so confident, and they keep doing their thing for a long period of time, and then they flip on a dime and they go the other way. I don't see that this is going to be anything different. The Fed is going to do their MO is not going to change. Powell has even done this before, right? Powell did a pivot in 2019, exactly like this. After raising rates to roughly the same level, actually, he paused. Then he paused, and they were doing QT. He stopped QT and immediately started QE and cut interest rates. So he's already done a pivot like that. So I just expect Powell, his MO, to come back once again. So that's what I would say, explain the Powell pivot and where I see the Fed and how they're going to react in coming months.
So pivot in the fall in conjunction with economic crisis.
Pivot in the fall. We will have to see what the rates are doing. I do think they will pivot, yes, because the 10-year is dropping. But if the 10-year stops dropping, then maybe they won't pivot till next year. We'll see. But the market is going to be in charge, not Powell. You'll be able to look at the yield curves and inflation expectations and stuff like that and say, okay, well, Powell is going to pivot. So by the way, inflation expectations are starting to come down as well. Not only the market driven inflation expectations, so what we kind of algorithmically derive from market rates on yields and things, you can see what is the expected or implied expected inflation. Those have always stuck around 2 to 2.5%, and they remain at that same level. But even CPI expectations are starting to turn over and come down. These are numbers done by the New York Fed. So all in all, it does look like the economy is slowing down. People think recession is here and CPI is going to fall. So that leaves room now for Powell to say, see, I told you so. Now I'm going to come in and help the market to a soft landing by cutting. It's all just narrative management.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just would like to zoom out and say, we live in a system where the monetary order is managed by central bankers that, one, don't control the system, two, at best are trying to get in front of the narrative and appear as if they are in control and manage, effectively do crisis management. Like, that is not a very sturdy base in which to build an economy. And that's kind of why we are forced to watch the Fed. We're forced to pay attention to these meetings. We're forced to report on these projections, but hopefully on a better system. These types of wasteful allocations of capital, wasteful uses of our human time, unproductive uses, will lessen. That's the high level idea here. So for now, you have to watch the Fed. You have to kind of understand what's going on. And if anything, the Fed is becoming more and more important to your daily life, just because if assets are important and what the Fed does affects your assets and the way that you store your value, then you're going to have to be paying attention to it. I know a great Bitcoiner, Matt Odell, he talks about the book The Mandibles. But in the book The Mandibles, the world is hyper financialized and people are very in tune with everything that's happening with central bankers and global reserve currencies and investing in assets, because it is a huge part of their lives. And really what Bitcoin is offering is kind of a return back to nature, a move away from having to everyone being a stock picker, and for people to just focus on what they care about or what they're skilled in, rather than having to double as an investor as well as a global macro analyst, as well as whatever you do for your profession. So I really do think that we are living in this kind of crazy time in history that is very, very unique, and we are hopefully going to return back to a relationship with value that is a lot more simple.
Yeah, I'll have to read that. I haven't heard of that book, The Mandibles, but it's also less efficient, right? You want the people with a comparative advantage in investing and in macro and in banking and how to allocate capital. You want these people that are good at that job to be the ones in charge of allocating capital. And if you have everybody doing it on their own and everybody is like a self-directed portfolio manager, that's a very inefficient way, because most people, right, lose in the market. So that's not going to get the best results. Once you take that out of their hands and you allow them to concentrate on what they're good at. So why does a dentist need to be worried about how his portfolio is doing on an hour-to-hour basis? He should worry about, filling the cavities or doing what he needs to do on the dental work, not worrying about his portfolio. So the economy will grow when people that are best at doing certain things do those certain things. And anyway, I just thought of that when you're talking.
No, totally. And I mean, this is kind of an idea that I got from you, which is Bitcoin aligns incentives, the Bitcoin ecosystem. People will migrate to it because that's where growth will be. And I've been on this kind of separate talk track that I'm trying to push Bitcoiners to be more bullish. And one of the things I try to unpack a little bit is, Bitcoiners like to talk about infinity divided by 21 million. But when you're doing that calculation, you not only have to take today's infinity and divide it by 21 million, and derive some sort of value per sat, but you also actually have to analyze and try to like forecast what growth into the future will look like under a Bitcoin standard. Because effectively what Bitcoin does is it creates a better and more productive world by, removing all this waste and baggage that's existing in the current financial ecosystem. And that will actually increase the infinity, right? So if you have a better system for allocating capital and for people to be more productive and to create more growth and to propel us beyond where we are today, that is actually going to make the infinity bigger, right? It's going to have a world with more value. So if anything, Bitcoiners need to be even more bullish, because not only are we going to hyper Bitcoinize what we have today, but we're building a better system that will actually create more wealth for the future. And if you don't believe me, then I would challenge you to go look back onto any, technological advance on Bitcoin's magnitude, which you could argue that there potentially never has been one. But, even if you look at the creation of the internet, or the creation of gunpowder, or the creation of fossil fuels, these things have unlocked a new paradigm of economic value that was never before possible. So Bitcoiners should be getting very bullish. I think they should be greedy at these prices, especially why people are fearful. But obviously, stay very kind of conservative in terms of don't put yourself in a position where you're forced to sell if Bitcoin goes against you in the short term. Because even Ansel and I, we pay a ton of attention to Bitcoin. We pay a ton of attention to what's happening in global macro, and we still can't even tell you what is going to happen in the next few days price wise.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of fixed pie versus growing pie, right? So there's some people out there that think that there's a fixed pie out there, and the rich get the fixed pie. That's why they're rich, and everyone else is left with a small portion of the pie. But capitalists think that there is a growing pie. So let's make the pie bigger for everybody. So if you are if you're looking to extend that analogy to Bitcoin, I would say like the dollar system is a fixed pie. And when you look out at the future, you see low growth and low inflation in the dollar, because we're doing deglobalization. We are at the end of diminishing marginal returns on debt. And so you see a fixed pie that there's some rich people already have that, a lot of that fixed pie. Or you look at Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is this beautiful growing pie that, hey, I can just jump in here and grow with the entire economy. And so I think that's going to be, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we agree. Bitcoin is hope, as Michael Saylor likes to say.
Yeah.
And we didn't even talk about, in terms of growing the pie, Bitcoin is providing financial services to the global south that has been largely ignored for all of fintech. So just by bringing those people online, just by saving them from the destitute that is their fiat and debt-based currencies. I'm weaving in debt-based currencies now because Ansel has corrected me that
Yes.
we don't actually even have fiat currencies
It's
anymore.
not fiat.
Ansel, I guess a slight side note: did you listen to the Stefan Livera podcast. I'm shouting out Stefan Livera. He's been killing it, but his show with Pierre Richard about how we're on a full reserve. We're on a full reserve fiat system now.
No, I didn't listen to that. And I was on there a couple weeks ago, right before you went on there.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to the episode because I hate listening to myself. I don't even watch these
you
live
killed it.
streams
You killed
afterwards.
it.
So, but yeah, this Stefan Livera has been crushing it. What did Pierre Richard say?
You know, I think you're going to have to listen to that one, and we are going to have to get Pierre on the show because I think he has some interesting contrarian points about what is actually happening in the fiat / debt-based system that we find ourselves in, credit-based system that we find ourselves in. Ansel, we need to wrap it up. We got 1 minute. Where can people find you?
BitcoinandMarkets.com, free newsletter every Friday. You can also check me out on Telegram, t.me/Bitcoin and markets. I do a live stream there every day, trying to do 15 minutes of live stream a day. See how long I can keep that going. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ansel Lindner. Christian, where can they find you?
CK_Snarks. I'm shit posting on Twitter all the time, every day. So, and here on Fedwatch. That's those are pretty much the two exclusive places that I shit post. But Ansel, it was a good rip. Chris, our producer, says that you got a shout out on Corey Clipston's episode of What is Money Show with Robert Breedlove. So a much deserved shout out. You should get more of those. But until then, everyone, make sure to follow Ansel, make sure to follow me, and enjoy getting back in with the hosts. And no, I've not tried Butter of the Gods yet, but that video you sent me looks awesome.
I don't know where Q and P are, but I think we're going to call it a wrap here. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Q's coming back.
Oh, there he is.
We're in the studio, baby. Chris, haircut looks nice, man.
Thanks, man.
Stay bullish, y'all. Go to Bitcoin Amsterdam.
See you guys.
Promo code CK10. Save yourself 10% off.
PM live.
See you, chat.
PM live, motherfucker.